On the video or the audience?
Or on.
Oh, so both.
Or with or on, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. My chance of.
She's not gonna.
being divided.
Oh, you just told me that.
He's not like.
Now I know, thank you so much. I like a what?
Hey,
Hey, Dawn.
Captain Murphy has some good news for you.
You want water? You got good news for me? No, thanks. Huh?
We have a new lieutenant. Special.
Oh, do you really?
Very
You gave him a B12 shot?
12.
He's my nephew. You're giving him.
We are live, the audio is gonna be.
Good morning, my dear. Your Jane. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I am Regina Barrow, State Senator for District 15, and I would like to call the meeting to order. It is now, I think, 10:09 a.m. And at this time, I will ask that we call the roll.
Alrighty, Senator Barrow,
Present.
Monica Taylor,
Present.
Dr. Reed. Present. Dr. Calais,
Here.
Todd Manuel,
President.
Jeremiah Sams,
Present.
Dr. Blair.
Present.
Senator Mizell. Here. Amelia Carmen. Dr. Walker. Captain Murphy.
Present.
Christina Bauer.
Here.
Morgan Lamadre.
Here.
Jacinta Massey. Sheridan Cooper. Present. Teresa Lede. Asia Day. Representative Davis. Abigail Artman. Here. Chief Sarang. Taylor Curtis. Jada Maloney. Joshua Jones, I'm here, and Natalie Ward. We have one. Oh, sorry. I skipped on you right after Asia Day. I'm sorry.
I didn't make the list, I'm not important.
We want you to make sure we have.
Absolutely not true. Thank you so very much, Ms. Golden, and we do have a forum. In accordance with the open meetings law, RS 4214, this meeting is live streamed. And so we want to make sure that everyone was aware of that. And at this time, members, you should have a copy of the minutes. Can I get an approval for the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, made by Monica Taylor and second by Jeremiah Sams. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. I want to welcome everyone to this panel discussion and to ask members to briefly introduce themselves for those of you who may be newcomers. And remind all panel members that this meeting, again, is being live streamed. So I will start again with myself. I am Regina Barrow, State Senator for District 15 and President Pro Tem. And I will go to my right.
Hi, my name is
I mean, I'm
Sheridan.
sorry, my left. The other right.
My name is Sheridan Cooper. I'm the Title IX Coordinator for Southern University at New Orleans, and I'm here representing the Southern University system.
Hey, everybody, I'm Bree Golden. I'm the Director of Government Affairs. I'm not on the panel, but I send all of you emails.
You didn't say Phillips.
Phillips, sorry, Brandon.
Phillips. Hey, congratulations.
So hard I have to follow. I'm Monica Taylor. I am the Director of the Governor's Office of Human Trafficking Prevention. Bree keeps forgetting the prevention part.
Another tough act to follow. Rafael DeCastro, Executive Director of the Louisiana Foundation Against Sexual Assault.
Erica Colley, Vice President, Student Services, Safety and Resilience, University of Louisiana System.
Senators, Commissioner Todd Manuel, Vice President for Engagement, Civil Rights and Title IX at Louisiana State University.
Good morning, everyone. Dr. Amber Blair, Executive Director of Student Compliance, Equity, and Governance on behalf of the Louisiana Community Technical College System.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jeremiah Sams. I am the Southern University System Director for Compliance and the Associate Vice Chancellor for Compliance on the Baton Rouge campus.
Christina Barr, I'm TANF Initiatives Program Manager with the Department of Children and Family Services.
Good morning, I'm Abigail Arterman. I am the student member for the LCTCS Board of CTS system.
What campus?
Baton Rouge Community College.
Belinda Murphy, Commander over Special Investigations, Louisiana State Police and proxy for Lieutenant Colonel Marberding.
Morgan Ramondre, President and CEO of STAR.
Beth Mizell, State Senator for District 12. I chair the Women's Caucus, so I feel like I'm representing every woman in that building across the street, so I try, thank you.
I try not to. Good morning, Kim Hunter Reed, Commissioner of Higher Education. Wonderful to have all of you here with us.
Again, I would like to welcome everybody here at the end of the year meeting. And again, I'd just like to thank all of you for your service. And at this time, I would turn it over to Dr. Reed to give us an update from her office.
Sure, thank you all so much. Appreciate it very much. We're gonna ask Bree to share a few updates with you. We do have a lot of information to share. I'm very excited that Monica's here to share information as well. And then thanks to our legislators, we've had two $1 million investments on campus safety assessments on our campuses. So we have Chris Herring who will be sharing those updates as well. So I'll let Bree go first and then we'll go from there. It was informal, so any questions you all may have, please jump in.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. All right, morning, everybody.
You have the deck in front of you.
So I just want to share a few updates that we have regarding the power-based violence policy and some other ongoing items that we have going on with the systems. Act 480 that became law through Senator Barrow, Senate Bills SB 343 from this past legislative session. Again, thank you, Senator Barrow, for always carrying power-based violence legislation. We have two notable important changes that have happened in state law as a result of ongoing conversations that we have in this panel, as well as the conversations we have with each of the systems. With respect to the training report, if you all remember this past session, we asked the legislature to align the campus employee and confidential training deadline with that of the state employee training deadline to December 31st. As you all know, at the end of the year, all of us have to take sexual assault training, ethics training. So we just wanted to make sure that that aligned with everything. So the systems have until December 31st to get to the board of to get to their systems, and they will send it to the Board of Regents next month on all of their training numbers. And the systems will be here to talk about what their training numbers look like when we get to them on the agenda. And then with respect to the legislative report, normally every year we send the legislative report to you all by January 15th because we asked for an extension to the training report deadline. That legislative report has been extended to be submitted to on February 20th. I'm sorry, I am. Whoop. This was not coffee, this was hot chocolate. So now I'm a little jittery. But this shifts the legislative submission report deadline to February 28th, so you'll be getting that at the end of the February. And then really quickly, some other ongoing items. We're always talking with the systems on things that we can improve on. Right now, I think we're in the third year of implementation with the power-based violence laws, and it's always an ongoing process. So we're still talking with them on updates to the power-based violence training, some updates and revisions. We first implemented the training back when the laws were implemented through your bill, Senator Mizell, and we haven't updated the training since 2021, so we're long overdue. One of the reasons why it kind of took too long, we wanted to see what happened with the proposed regulations, and now that we know that those regulations have come to a halt, we're still operating from the 2020 regulations. And so now that that's cleared, we're just going to see what we need to touch up on and how training has been going on campus so far. If there's any possible changes that we may need to make with some definitions in the policy and the appendix side. So that's something that we're going to be working on. Same thing goes with the top confidential advisors training, just any kind of refreshers that we need to have for the confidential advisors. We want to also see what's been going on with how they've been interacting with campus law enforcement and campus security. So if there's something that we need to keep in mind for that to put in the training, we're going to touch upon that as well. And then we are constantly gonna be talking to them about MOU updates. As you know, we've had a slew of election cycles. We had new chiefs of police, new sheriffs, a lot of new people come into office across the state. And we just had an election this past weekend in several parishes. So normally what I like to do is get with Monica and see, because she always talks to the chiefs of police. Talks, bullies, whatever the case may be. So we wanna see who and see if this affects any of the campuses. So they'll have to probably make updates to their MOUs.
Maybe you're the wrong person to ask, but do you all, when you get the updates and all that, do you see the engagement in each facility on the training? What percentage of staff are actually doing the training? Do you get that?
Participating in the training?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
and they'll share that.
Yeah, we get the percentage.
So and probably should know that, but each system submits the percentage of engagement from the full staff. Okay.
Right.
And do you know, is there a consequence for non-engagement? Okay.
They're
And I should know
mandated
that
training,
too,
but as far as like, if there's any disciplinary action, to my knowledge, I don't think there's any disciplinary action indicated in
There's no state
state and
attached to it at
state
all.
law, but I don't know what they do on each individual campus.
Okay,
I don't know.
okay.
And maybe that's a question when the systems are reporting, they can tell us what they.
Yeah, what they, if
Because I
they
would-
have
I
that,
would hope
y'all
that
would
we don't
appreciate
have to.
So I know that our goal is always 100%, and
Right.
and so I do know that you get the nudge, push from your supervisor to say, you haven't done this. But other than that, I'm not sure, but we
Okay.
keep trying to say to people, like, this is part of your employment requirement here, so you need to do this training. And you'll see that the numbers have continued to get better and better because people understand the importance, and you all have put such a bright light on it. But in terms of a stick, I don't know, other than your supervisor saying, where is it?
The only thing that is in state law is if a responsible employee fails to report power-based violence.
That's right.
That,
That's
there's a
what-
consequence.
that's a
in state law,
consequence
But as
of
far as
that.
training,
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
no training consequence.
I
in state
think
law.
it's similar to just like any state employee, if you don't take your ethics or sexual harassment or whatever, it's not,
Just
you're.
the box is not checked.
But
Yeah.
you're still held accountable for the information.
That's
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there a list that is posted, like of individuals who have or who have not taken it? I think that would be something we may need to consider.
I'm sure our campuses do have that information, but that has not been published. And I did want to mention that for those employees who do not take the mandated trainings like power-based violence, Title IX, responsible employee training, sexual harassment, ethics, I think that is part of their annual performance review. So if their supervisor sees that they have not taken those mandated trainings, then they can get dinged for it.
Right.
In terms of their,
Yeah.
Got it.
And the dean would be decided by each system.
Yeah. Well, I would say
individual
each
campus.
Right.
That gives me a little pause though. I don't know if I'm really excited about that because of the culture, right, that we're in. So depending on who the supervisor is, there may not be a necessary notable dean.
Ding, right,
Uh-huh.
right.
So
So we
I
need a
took note of
consistent
that.
ding. Okay.
I'm just saying.
It's such a mind meld between us two. They'll interpret all the energy that's coming on both sides.
How many times did you write ding down?
It's great.
It was donk yesterday, the Chiefs game. I'm just saying, the Chiefs won by a donk. They kicked I don't know if anybody saw, they kicked a field goal and at the last minute.
Oh, yeah, I
of the
did, I
game, and
did
it
that.
Hit the uprights and then went in. And
And they
it
call
hit,
That was
it
phenomenal.
went donk, it literally went, the ball went donk on the uprights and then went in, so.
That was phenomenal.
I thought you were gonna talk about the Saints and the
No,
blocking.
it's looking more and more like a Chiefs Super Bowl, but.
It sure is.
But those are all the updates that I have.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you so much, Bria. I appreciate that. And again, you all, at this table, the senators know that we continue to say for transparency, how can we get better? What are we missing? And I know the senators ask us every time, right? Is it getting better or more people engaged or more people training? What else do you need? So I do appreciate that sort of spirit of continuous improvement that we bring to this table as a group. And our students especially, having that voice of the students so important. Okay, so now I'd like to ask Chris Herring to provide an update for us and campus safety assessments. There's been a tremendous support from the legislature on doing this, and as you know, we're always focused on improved campus safety. So our gratitude to the legislators for providing dollars, and then we coordinated that with the campuses and systems. So Chris, if you'll share.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, everybody. So yeah, as Dr. Reed mentioned, we were able to secure some one-time dollars during the 2023 session for our campus safety assessments. This stemmed in part between an event that happened at one of our northern institutions, as well as some of the events that were happening around the country, the shooting in Texas at this elementary school. And I mean, it's happening every day these days. So that kind of initiated the effort. Governor Edwards wanted to place some emphasis on campus safety. We were able to secure the one-time funding to get started in 2023. So we had worked with the National Center for Biomedical Research and Training, which is a Homeland Security funded group that's housed on the LSU campus. We had worked with them in the past to provide some statewide and regional trainings for the institutions, and we engaged with them to work on these assessments. They're comprised primarily of ex-law enforcement, whether it's from the state police level, city law enforcement, campus law enforcement, as well as epidemiologists. There's somebody with more of a focus in veterinary skills, veterinary medicine. So it's a kind of a wide variety of folks that make up the team there. One of the persons, it was one of the first group of responders to the event at Virginia Tech many years ago. So it's a wide base of folks from a variety of areas across the country that comprise that group. So in 23, we worked with each system office to identify, we started with 2 schools per system to kind of get the effort going. Weren't sure how the cost once we got into it, how many we'd be able to do with the first meeting. And so we started that effort. We identified the 2 institutions per system. Those assessments were completed, and then we started moving forward into the additional institutions. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. So we did the 2 institutions. We started moving into the remaining institutions at that point, and we realized, going into 24 session, we were not going to have enough money to complete the assessments of every public post-secondary institution in the state. So again, thankfully, the legislature provided an additional $1 million in 2024, which has allowed us to continue the effort, and we will be finishing all the assessments probably by late spring, or May timeline of 2024.
Right.
Sure.
So I just want to understand the perspective of campus safety. Because you referenced, the school shootings and all those horrible things. Was that the perspective going into how you were addressing campus safety? Or was there, I just want to make sure I'm thinking the same way you're thinking. Are you looking at it from the safety of students on campus, day-to-day safety? Or are you looking at a big event that you're trying to avoid?
Both.
Okay, so micro and macro.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
I don't want to interrupt you, but you're going to tell us how you're handling that day-to-day lighting, girls going to camp, to class in the dark safety as well. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
That's right.
Every time, next slide.
Yep, it is. So the assessments they involve 3 broad main areas of focus. The first being site assessments, dealing with threat assessments and capacity. As you can see, the site assessments deal with a variety of things from natural technological surveillance, access controls, lighting, signage, cameras, kind of your infrastructure related items. The threat assessments deals with the institution's emergency operation plans, the building emergency action plans, development of BIT teams, sometimes referred to as CARE teams, which is behavioral, threat, teams, and then the capacity dealing with, law enforcement staffing, whether they have enough equipment like Narcan and tourniquets on campus, and then the capabilities of those folks that are staffed with taking care of these responsibilities. So it's a multi-pronged approach that looks at a variety of areas. And this is what we've done as of last week. We've finished about, let's see, 21 assessments up to this point. We don't have any more scheduled for this year, but the next one on the books is for Grambling in January. And we also have Nichols, Fletcher, Lumcon scheduled for January, ULL in February next year. And then the New Orleans schools asked for a reprieve until after Mardi Gras and the Super Bowl. So once they've got all that out of the way, we'll take care of the New Orleans schools. And with LSU, we're working on, it's a bit of a different approach for the benefit of all higher education. So we're working with a group there to develop a web-based application so that folks can self-assess themselves in the future, because it's best practice to do these assessments every 2 years or so to make sure that as new people come and other people go, that everybody understands their responsibilities when an emergency action plan or operation plan is activated, and everybody has a grasp of what needs to happen in the event of any type of an emergency. So
Self-assess, what does that really mean?
so they're campus police personnel, or whoever they assign to emergency management personnel will be able to go around and conduct the same type of assessment that's being done now.
So currently, that's being done by whom?
The NCBRT group,
The professionals. these
Yeah.
people didn't
the law,
stay in
ex-law
that
enforcement, and those guys.
So let me share this. And I want to make sure, Chris, if there are some upcoming dates that we share them, particularly with the legislators. So when the team goes out, 4 or 5 person team,
Usually,
they go in the day and they go at night. And they pull doors and they look at lighting, and sometimes the students walk with them and they do a full assessment. These bollards need to be here, this light is out, this, et cetera. Then they go again at night. And they assess, right? And they have all their checklist of all the things they do. What they have said to every campus is, this needs to be an ongoing process. And so once we get the template down, we want to build an app so that whoever is in charge of law enforcement can do the same assessment that we are doing as we're walking the campus. So you have the benefit of continuing to look at those things.
So you're looking at the points of value
Right,
to gauge the safety on the campus.
campus.
But so this is not from a Title IX perspective.
I
This is
mean,
environmental scan,
Full
yes.
picture of the security.
Title IX is a component of that.
Right, right.
And part of the review is looking at policies and procedures and making sure they're following their Clery Act responsibilities, making sure they're following the laws related to power-based violence, in terms of posting information on their website and all that. But yes, it's more of a global look.
Full assessment.
Why isn't LSU Baton Rouge on the list?
Well, that's the one we're piloting, developing the app. So we're developing that web-based app, and then we're gonna pilot that application on that campus.
So it's not completed. This
LSU,
is the completed list.
these are
right?
just completed.
Those are complete.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So
So
we
we have
have-
several to do after the first of the year.
Okay.
And when is their schedule to be finished?
LSU,
Yes.
I don't know yet. We actually have a meeting with the web developers tomorrow. So hopefully, I think the timeline is to have all these hopefully complete by June 30th.
So we'll get it for you as soon as we do that.
But if you obviously see a problem on campus with lighting, you're not waiting for an eval to tell you to put lights in, are you?
Not necessarily. I mean, the institutions, one of the things we found that a lot of them have made great improvements with lighting. Is there area for room for more improvement? Of course. LSU's spent a lot of funding here in the last couple of years, upgrading lighting. But it's still, there's definitely still a need, but it's part of is, so when they do that nighttime assessment, they're, with at ULM 2 weeks ago or so, the Student Government Association was meeting. So they grabbed all the SGA kids and they took them on that night walk so they could hear the perspective, not only seeing with their eyes, from their perspective, but these are where the students are saying there's a need and this is areas of concern. So, because, folks see things differently, they may identify an area or something that somebody else may not have thought of.
And sometimes the fixtures are there.
Yeah, and they,
Nobody
correct,
puts fresh bulbs. in.
correct.
Which is, that's like, we don't have to give you $2 million to put a bulb in.
Right.
I mean, so that is real frustration on my part. When I would sit in campus to pick up my granddaughter and I couldn't even see the building she was coming out of because, and then, an hour later, whatever, they're able to put bulbs in. I mean, that's just something that.
Routine maintenance.
That's all.
Routine maintenance, but
That's a
also
maintenance
it's just
issue.
frankly, give a flip about safety on campus, So that's, I just want to make sure we're covering something as obviously fixable as that, not just looking at all the new ways of doing it, but let's not overlook what is an easy fix from day to day, so.
My question is, before this assessment was made, has there been protocol at all these different campuses to routinely just check to see if lights are out or routinely? Was that in place already? You're just looking to improve it or?
Well,
So the
It
schedule,
just seems logical that, there would be some type of maintenance program where people are walking the campus every month and see at night and see what lights are out and fix them. Right?
yeah, but it's not so much looking at lights that are out, it's more looking at blanks, blank coverage areas on campus. Somewhere that you may not have a light in place and after evaluation, it's like, we could use some light in here. Or students may just cross across, 30 yards of area and there's a dark spot in that particular space.
I guess my question is, has there been in place a self-maintenance type system for all these campuses to walk around and look for those gaps, or is this something?
If there's
Yeah,
like a pothole, you can report it, and it gives you the GPS coordination for then the city parish to come and fix the pothole. Is there something like that where people can be like, hey, this is out?
so the scheduled maintenance, I can't answer that. I don't know if the system folks can, but your point is an important one, right? So I do believe that as a result of these conversations, there's more attention to lighting. The question that you're asking around preventative maintenance and consistent review.
Right. Instead of waiting every
I have a
year to
note,
look at it.
right, I have a note on that to ask how that's working, because that's an important point, right? It's not just, to Chris's point, a gap where no fixture exists. It's Senator Mizell's point about this is the life expectancy of bulbs, so we're preventatively changing out the bulbs before they go out. Or no one has noticed that the light's out and it's been 2 months, and when the senator calls, the bulb gets changed, right?
Right.
So that's the issue.
Or like you're saying, crowdsource it, right? To where the students have an access to be able to report it themselves.
Yeah, I like that.
So it's the determination of which campuses were picked first.
Each system identified
Systems.
the first two, and then after that, we kind of went geographically, to be honest with you. If we were in Shreveport, we did Health Science Center Shreveport, LSU Shreveport, Southern Shreveport, and just kind of moved geographically as we went forward. But the first two, we let the systems identify which ones they'd like us to get to.
So I just want to say, I think that lighting is important for overall campus safety. But I think a big thing is, I don't want to get too bogged down on talking about just lighting, because that really, how often does that come into effect when we're talking about power-based violence? Like most of these crimes, when we're talking about Title IX, we're talking about power-based crimes, those aren't being done by a stranger in a dark spot in the middle of campus or somewhere on campus or in a dark corner of campus. That's being done. To me, it's more about, like, if you're doing this assessment of the campus, and more importantly than lighting, is going to be, are all the doors that are supposed to be locked from the outside being locked from the outside? Are those locks not being broken? Because if someone is stalking someone, they're gonna find that entry point into their dorm and get in. Doesn't matter if it's well lit or not, as if the door lock is broken and there's no alarm on the door, then they're gonna try and get in. Is there safety at the front desk, at the dormitory? Is that those types of things, I think, come into play a lot more when you're talking about campus safety. To me, in my thought, I do think for overall campus safety and for overall crime, lighting is very important because you're gonna have less people getting mugged and beaten up and all of those kinds of things. But we're specifically talking about power-based violence. Let's not forget that that is being done not in the dark shadows in the yard, where we do see that in some cases, this the Stanford rapist situation, but this is being done by someone who knows somebody. It's being done in the light of day, in the dorm room, at the party, those types of things. So I don't want to get too bogged down on that. Again, it is important for overall safety, but to me, it's more important are all of the back doors of the dormitory that are supposed to be locked at night.
It would be really important for us to know the pattern of the incidents, what the location is and what, so that's.
And lean into that.
Yeah.
I think though that goes to the assessment and stuff to where it's like, for me, lighting alone may not prevent a sexual assault, and I think of sexual assault in general, but does the lighting provide what we need to be able to actually see very clearly in video surveillance, to where that's evidence to then hold somebody accountable? Or is there less likeliness of, true prevention, we know true prevention is not this is just risk reduction. But I think that, when it comes down to it, and I still think of what happened in a very popular, I guess, or, case that was well known where somebody, let's say they're walking around, then nobody can see them and they get hit by a car because they were intoxicated. Like there's different components of this that fit into the overall picture.
Is such an easy.
Right, but I think that it stems from other issues surrounding power-based violence for sure.
Absolutely true, and I will say this, in the very beginning, one of the things that we were asked funding for was for lighting.
Right.
We were asked money for actually being able to put more lighting on campuses.
And I think it's important
So,
for the overall
Yeah.
safety. And like, Morgan said, you can use, if you have cameras and poor lighting, then your cameras are no good.
Well, and that's why I was asking about how the campuses were selected, because it seemed like everyone was overwhelmingly talking about the LSU main campus and that they're not completed or it sounds like they have not, it's in the process. So it's like, that's where I think there's frustration and no one's actually saying it out loud. So.
And if the campuses self-selected the first two, why didn't LSU pick their main campus that they're having the most issues with?
Yeah.
If I can ask a question, you were talking about LSU doing a self-assessment. Prior to the self-assessment, are they going through the same assessment that these other campuses are going through, or is it solely through their own self-assessment?
No, it will be in conjunction with the NCBRT folks.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just part of that is trying to pilot that web-based application so that we can distribute it to everybody else to be done. Because they'll have their baseline information from these first 2 years. So when they come back in 2 years to reevaluate, they can see, well, we may have needed improvements here. And in these 2 years, we have made it, we're lacking in this area. And she was 100% right on the access controls for the doors. This is a slide that this kind of contains the.
Before you move on to that though, please, thank you for going back to that because you started answering my question, but I never finished asking my question because that's why I brought it up. Yes, but it seemed like you want to say something, Ms. Emanuel, and I think we need to give you an opportunity to address why LSU did not choose this the main campus.
Well, Senator, I can't answer that question.
Okay,
So
you want to say something now.
well, what I was just gonna say was, I think one of the things I was pointing out was that a pilot is gonna be done. And LSU is going to be a part of that pilot. And so I think that gives us an opportunity to participate in a major way in terms of the development of the application that will be used. And so I can't speak to why the main campus wasn't selected first, but if I think about the development of that application, I would think that the main campus would be a great place to test that and to see how that could be applied in other spaces, as well as the location here in Baton Rouge to the Board of Regents and providing information. So I think that may be some things that may have played in it, but those are questions that, you know, we could drill down on with more information for you at a later point in time.
So we hear you on the LSU Baton Rouge question, and we will make sure to know when the assessment will occur on LSU's Baton Rouge campus. So that's clear. So that we owe that back to you, as a group. I'm sorry, Chris, you were saying.
Can I ask a question? Oh, yeah. Is any assessment being done at LSU by NCBRT while the app is being developed, since the app's gonna be housed there?
That's what you said. It's they're gonna do the assessment and they're gonna do an
Got it,
activity.
okay.
Yes,
Part of the whole pilot.
Absolutely.
Process.
What does NCBRT stands for?
The National Center for Biomedical Research and Training. It's a little misleading.
Does that sound very intimidating?
Yeah, it's a little misleading, but they do, and on the next slide, I'll touch on kind of what the broad scope of things that they do. Like I said, they have a lot of law enforcement experience along with some other, focus areas and, they provide a lot of trainings, not only just in the state, but across the nation, to other police departments, institutions, so they're well versed in what they're doing here.
Is that in here? The name?
You know what?
we'll send you the link so you have the information.
And, you know, again, these are some of the observations that we've seen just from, the assessments done so far. What we found is institutions are doing better, than we would think, in a lot of areas. Some of the areas are doing well. They've talked to, each time they do an assessment, they'll meet with the administrative and leadership team for an institution. They'll conduct individual interviews during the day with those folks. And they'll also, as they try to meet with the SGA president, and then as they move around campus, they like to pull students off to the side and kind of question them on their thoughts about campus security and stuff. Most institutions and students, you know, we're satisfied with the presence and responsiveness of the police department, our security staff on campus. Most of the campus, if not all, are very clean, including their buildings. The landscaping is done in a manner so that it provides natural barriers and our surveillance for a lot of buildings. Again, lighting was noted as, if folks if they were lacking in lighting, nearly everybody was working on improving it as we went around. Again, people felt safe on campus, and the administration, every administration that we talked to, you know, had a commitment to safety and the process that we were undertaking. The common recommendations across the board was more training, whether it's on emergency operations plans and putting those into practice, the use of Narcan, run, hide, fight, every aspect of training, we found that institutions, both faculty, staff, students, and administrations could, you know, use more training in a variety of areas. The next big thing, as she mentioned, was access controls. This is a common recommendation against across all campuses. Access controls are expensive. So it was, recommendation included not only purchasing new access controls for facilities, but it identify where door locks, like was mentioned, may be broke or the door's not functioning right. It's like, hey, this needs to be fixed. This needs to be corrected in this area. Cameras, additional cameras was the recommendations, and having a deterrent strategy for not only trespassers and people coming from off campus, but also additional signage in terms of gun-free zones, drug-free zones, and you're under 24-hour surveillance. And the last one dealt with the actual staffing levels of campus police and security. A lot of the departments are understaffed. Some campuses do not have a formal police department. They utilize security services. So the recommendation there was to create their own police department.
Can I ask you a question? You probably already answered this, and if so, I apologize for asking again. when you look at the overall assessment, how big a piece of the puzzle was like working with students and working with employee staff to come up with these evaluations? Was that a really large piece of the puzzle?
They spend the first day on campus. They'll have a group meeting with the administration or leadership team as defined by the campus. And then they spend the remainder of that day interviewing folks. It's, you know, administrative folks. I'm not sure if they bring individual faculty in at that moment, but as they move around campus for their site visit, the actual assessment part, which can last 3 to 4 days, that's when they'll pull those folks off individually.
You answered my next question. I was wondering how long the assessment period is.
Yeah, typically about a week. Maybe if it's a satellite LCTCS institution, they may only have one building, then of course, you know, it would be a lot less, but it's typically about a week.
And also if so Amber can speak to this, but if the campus has, as Chris mentioned, if it's a main campus, BRCC, and it has a Northdale campus, another campus, and they will go to all of those, right? All of the sites. And then give a comprehensive report back to the president himself about, so a pre-meet and then a post-meet with that leadership. And here's what we found. Here's what's working well. Here's what's not working well, so that they have a full report, which I think is in keeping with the power-based violence piece, which is this up the chain reporting, right? Making sure that the head of the campus can't say, I didn't know, that they are directly engaged in the work.
So when, I wanna, I guess, get into the weeds of that point you were making too, to Raphael's question about like gathering or getting these people, like for students, is it literally like just if they're walking around campus, oh, do you want to comment? Or is it like we're advertising for focus groups, we're advertising a specific time where people can submit sort of comments about it? Or maybe like having a forum, having a survey to complete? Because I'm afraid we're not getting input from the actual students, it sounds to me.
Well, that's concerning too. That's exactly where I led that point, because a lot of, you know, we don't focus on who we're serving, right? So, that's
Yeah,
a
like
concern.
they're the ones who are being, like, who are honestly gonna give you the best answer for what maybe needs to be happen, because the administration is gonna have a different view. I think even a safety person will have a different view from the individual, because some of this is very subjective. It's not an objective assessment. It's about a subjective feeling of being unsafe. So obviously, we're not gonna address all of it, but it seems like that is not a component of the assessments that.
So my understanding is that they're talking to students on every campus. To your specific question of is it focus groups? Are there invitations to come on a certain date? We'll get that for you. But my understanding is every campus visit includes student conversations.
Yeah.
And student conversations separate from administrator conversations. So they're not filtered or not feeling like I need to say the right thing because the president's sitting next to me. But we'll get that.
Well, and that's why it's like, if it's just student government, there's a certain amount of privilege that comes with being in student government. So literally, like making sure everyone on campus, in particular the survivors.
I am the SGA president at BRCC, so I can't agree with that. Like, I feel a different way because I have more protection, I feel like, than a student that just comes like twice a week. And some of them have night classes, and I will say, I personally had a night class one time and I was very nervous about it, even just in PR. And walking to the parking garage, I refused to park in the parking garage because the cameras didn't work and there was poor lighting.
Yeah, well, that's something, and I'm glad that you said that, because why can't we just bring it up to the student unions and let the students say, and have a push before the team comes in?
Right.
And say, okay, what are your spidey sense telling you?
That's right.
Is it those stairwells? Is it this? Is it that? But I do have to applaud you on the institution commendations, because if there's a place that we don't care about the lighting, we don't care about the general landscaping, the cleanliness, it's like the broken windows theory.
Right,
If
right.
things don't look right and
That's right.
things aren't kept up, then that's when people are gonna come in and try try different things. But if the student and those that are coming in to do harm or to do no good see that everything, that the doors are always maintained, that our maintenance departments are keeping the bulbs in and keeping everything straight, and everything is clean and looks the way it's supposed to, that means that they're taking care of things and that they're more likely to notice you there. But I do think that the students should be able to, because there's a lot of kids that have
Yeah.
the night classes and
That's right. And
they're gonna tell us whether it's, I call it your spidey sense that's telling you something's not right,
Right, right.
or it's, you know, what do you feel that's unsafe or an area. You tell me one place on this campus, you can maybe throw it out there and let them have a survey.
Yeah.
Tell me one place on this campus that you feel unsafe and see what kind of feedback that you get.
Yeah,
You can
there's
survey.
a class in a certain building in all campuses, all the students know we're not gonna go, if this particular class I need is gonna be held in this building at a certain time, I'm gonna, you know, wait, or, that's a thing, pretty much, I mean, at least it was when I was at LSU in undergrad, I mean, so there's certain things it seems like we're not utilizing the best resource.
Dark at 5 o'clock.
And let me add, this is probably gonna, is it the same group of people that does each campus? From the company, or they send different people?
There'll be the core 3 or 4, and depending on the institution, they'll bring in expertise from other areas.
Okay.
So
And are they, the makeup of that is law enforcement mostly?
primarily law.
Okay, and are there women?
Yes.
Or just men?
No, there's some women on the team too.
Okay.
Good question.
Okay, because there's a lot of things, there's a lot of things that well, not anymore, because I'm old and nobody cares. But as a young woman, there was a lot of things that I did that men never even think about. You know, and I guess by reflex, you know, now I probably still do it, I don't know, but you know, you always carry your keys in your hand a certain way. Or back when we had car keys, you always carried your keys in your hand a certain way. Now we have key fobs. But, you know, I mean, I recently saw a TV interview with some actors, and one of them was like, yeah, somebody was saying you take a phone and it was a bunch of guys, and they were like, who's thinking about taking your phone and doing that? And the actress just looked at him and said, I do. Every woman does that every single day. So now you know.
Yeah.
And it was just like the dead air. And so I think it's important that they're, you know, so that's why I asked that question, just to clarify.
So we'll find out about the student engagement survey idea, we'll see about that, and then we'll get for you the upcoming schedule of assessment. So if anybody wants to tag along or go see it in action, I think that would be great.
That would be great,
Yeah.
and I would like to get a copy of the assessments that have been completed.
All right, and this, the final slide here, you know, the next steps of what we're doing. Again, we have 10 or 12 or so assessments to complete. That will happen in the spring up until probably around June of next year. But then also this allows for NCBRT to provide technical assistance to our institutions in terms of developing emergency operation plans, our BIT policies, and we've seen some really well done plans in terms of the BIT program. Northwestern State has a very strong team there. And it's something that we're seeing what school A is doing well, that can be copied and pushed on to school B and C and vice versa. You know, SLCC, their 7 or so institutions scattered all over Acadiana was exceptional in their access controls usage, which was surprising. You wouldn't think a smaller institution to have the access control capability like they did.
Can you use your card swipe to get in?
They can shut it down, they can use cards, they can shut it down from a central location on the main campus, they can lock an individual building. They're doing really well with that. And we brought them in to explain that to the other institutions a month ago at a summit we held. So other folks know what others are doing and where they can copy that when they can.
So we're not trying to rebuild the wheel.
No.
We've got best practices.
Right.
We know.
Right.
So when you're saying you're gonna be doing it in June, doesn't get dark till 8 o'clock in June, and I really feel like there's an opportunity, if you're not on the LSU campus at 5 o'clock on a class night. And see, and I get the whole thing, but
No,
there's a
you're right.
feeling you have when you're walking through a wooded area in the dark.
That's right.
That is not necessary in in that size university. So I just don't want you to miss that opportunity.
Okay, and I'll relay that information.
AKA move up the LSU Baton Rouge assessment for next week. We got it, we got it. We get the vibe. We got it, we got it. We got it. And I do think that this question about your spidey senses, right? This question about tell us a place or two where you just don't feel comfortable on campus, because you're right, we all can think about that situation where you finished your test, but you're waiting on Regina to finish her test because you're not gonna walk back to that parking lot without somebody, because you just have.
Right.
Right?
And I know, and maybe y'all need to help me with this. But I know, like, if we looked at the incidents of assault or where reports come to the hospital with a woman that's been assaulted. It may not be on campus, but LSU's got a big stick to swing. And they can influence what's happening and I don't mean to. I know you're not even in this, but I'd like all of us to think about. It's not my job if it's not my property, but your students are going over there and being sexually assaulted. It becomes your job. So I think we need to look beyond. Yeah, and at the level of influence the universities have with entities off campus. That's right. I mean, I don't know, I'd be happy to go protest or something, but I just don't, I'm tired of hearing, oh, I can't do anything. My gosh. We got a tremendous level of influence if we use it. So, yeah, I'd like to know that. And I guess you're not looking at that, but when you talk to students and they say, oh, these are my areas of concern, I can't go to my car when I'm at Tigerland without being afraid I'm gonna be raped. That's something that the campus needs to look at.
And I guess I'll wait till universities kind of respond, because I would like to see how are we categorizing where these crimes are
Yeah,
happening.
I put that note,
Yeah,
patterns of
yeah.
location of incidents, and how are we using that?
Right.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Karen.
We appreciate it, appreciate it.
Now, everyone, we will hear from
Chris.
Chris. We'll hear from Monica Taylor from the Office of the Governor, Director of Human Trafficking and Prevention.
You don't need me to get up, do you? Okay, I can do it from here. What's that?
Totally up to you.
Sorry here. So I think in the last year since we've met, we've done a lot of training of law enforcement. So I've done every campus, with the exception of LSU. I've not done any of the LSU except LSU Shreveport. The chief came when I did Southern Shreveport. But I have done just about all of the law enforcement. And I did a neurology of trauma focusing on. Yes. That's
Why
okay.
you haven't done LSU yet?
That's a fantastic question. I've spoken to the former chief, the current chief. I spoke with the president. I spoke with the athletic director. And I have given them all my cards. I have offered to come and do the training, do the classes.
Yes,
When they were, the last time I spoke to any of them was the last time I spoke to the president and the athletic director was when they were at the Capitol for LSU Day. I spoke to both of them then, and the last time I spoke to the chief was in September. Yes.
So what's involved in so who green lights the training and what do you need to do the training?
So I think for some of the other campuses, so the technical and community college system, theirs is a little bit different, and I'll get to that in a second. But Jeremiah and Erica basically did a lot of sort of sent the message down to the campuses and said it needed to be done. For the UL system, they did a couple of summits, statewide summits, and I've been able to do the training there. In addition to that, ULL has had me go on campus and do not only all of their officers, but they invited all of the detectives and the chiefs of police in the parish that they work with to come to. And then Tech, I went multiple times to Tech and did with them as well, both their regional plus their local law enforcement. But all of, like, most of their law enforcement has had the training from me. The same thing Jeremiah had me do. Both, I did 2 days at Southern Baton Rouge, a day at Southern New Orleans, and a day at Southern Shreveport. So, and I've done several of the other UL systems as well, campuses, Southeastern, Nichols. We can't remember all of them. I have not done Grambling, but the Grambling detectives have attended my training at Tech, but I haven't done all the officers at Grambling.
So before you finish, I want to make sure, or if you follow up, which campuses you haven't done, so we can push that to the system president to say these haven't been done.
So the campuses that I haven't done all of law enforcement, I've done either their chiefs or a portion of their law enforcement. I think it's just Northwestern. I haven't done all of them, although we have had multiple conversations and it's been like a scheduling problem. I think that's it for their system. And then with the LT and then the LSU campuses, other than I have done LSU Shreveport, the chief. And then
Who have you been in touch with at LSU? Have you spoken to our current chief?
Yes.
Marshall Walton?
I spoke to him in September and told him to give me a call. I gave him my card and said, I'm happy to come and do this. I've done this every place else. We can schedule it. I will come and do it. Even though in my new position in the governor's office, I'm not doing as much training. I've still kept on to this training because there's nobody else doing it for law enforcement. And I think Erica and Jeremiah can back me up. It's been very successful when I've gone to do it with law enforcement.
Absolutely.
There's a language there that I speak that's been helpful. Because here's the thing you have to remember with campus law enforcement. There's a difference between campus law enforcement and municipal law enforcement. Because campus law enforcement are employees of the university, of the system. And so but at the same time, and I'm gonna pick on Jeremiah for a minute if you don't mind. He knows, and there was at one of his trainings, there was some questions being asked. And I think that there was some frustration expressed by law enforcement, which I was really happy that they expressed it, even though Title IX and the system attorney was in the room. And I basically said, Jeremiah is the attorney for the university, for the system. He is not your attorney for the law enforcement. And so I think they felt very comfortable hearing somebody say that to them from outside and saying to them, these are the things that you need to be doing to protect the student and yourself and the university, in that order. The student, yourself, and the university, in that order. Because rightfully so, Jeremiah is employed to protect the university. That's his job. He gets paid to protect the university as their attorney. And so, I mean, there's just honest conversations that these cops need to hear and need to have. I don't know, you can push back on that, Jeremiah, if you want. Not to say you don't care about, I'm not saying you don't care about victims and you don't care about the police officers and the staff, because I know you do. But it's your job, you know? And so, there's just certain things that they need to hear and they want to hear. I've had great buy-in by some of the chiefs of police. Others I haven't had as much interaction with. The more interaction I have with a certain law enforcement agent, the better relationship that I get with them. And the more they trust me. I don't have that with the LSU yet because I don't come in contact with him. He doesn't attend the Louisiana Chiefs of Police Association meetings. I don't see him at them usually. I do see the healthcare center chief at most of them, and I have had lots of conversations with him. Obviously, his situation is much different in the way he polices that campus because it is within the hospital. And so his situation is different, but I have had conversations with that chief multiple times. He does attend that conference. And then most of the technical and community colleges contract either with a security company, which we are working, my office is currently working with the new head of the board of the security company to update their training module because it is very old and outdated. And so we're adding some of this stuff and some human trafficking stuff to their training model. And that's statewide, not just for the community and technical colleges. And then they also contract with a lot of local law enforcement. And so we've had lots of conversations in those areas where they are contracting with local law enforcement. And then to that end, what we did is a couple of conferences ago, before I moved over to the governor's office, when I was at the AG's office, Jeremiah came, you came, Joshua came, yes, Amber came as well. What we did, and I had some chiefs from the UL system. So if we did a panel at the Chiefs of Police Conference. At that first panel,
It was great.
we had about 30 chiefs who came, but they did it as a breakout session.
Monica,
Yes.
was everybody invited?
No, it was a breakout session, so they could have picked between one or two sessions, but Chief Sarang, who is the chief of police in Thibodeau, went to Fabian Blanc, who's the head of the Chiefs Association, and said, no, everybody needs this. And so at not the last conference that was here, the conference before, we did it and
We did it in Marksville and we did it in.
we did it in
Alexandria.
in Alexandria. Jeremiah and Bree came and we did, it was last minute notice, so we couldn't get as many folks there. But we did have two chiefs from the UL system serve on that. Monroe and Tech were both there. They attend all of the Chiefs of Police conference. And we did it with all the municipal chiefs of police. We must have had 200 chiefs of police in that room. And so we talked about, and we talked about the MOUs. We talked about how even if you don't have a system that physically sits in your jurisdiction, why this is important for you to know about, because you have students that come from, just because you're the chief of police in Central and you don't have a university there, how many Southern students, LSU students, BRCC students live in Central? And if something happens, either they're a victim or a perpetrator. So we've had all those conversations with them. I think it was both panels, and y'all can chime in on that. I think both panels are really good. And I think we have a lot of questions and a lot of participation from them. So we've done most of the municipal police officers, including the chief Morris from Baton Rouge, attended both the breakout session and he caught the end of the full session as well. Yes.
So you mentioned, Monica, I know these folks are gonna jump in, but I wanna ask one quick question. You mentioned that you did the training in the AG's office, you don't do as much training, but will you continue
Yes.
to do this training?
Yes.
Okay.
Cause I don't know that there's anybody else who is doing this training or who has the capacity to do this training. I mean, I am happy to train somebody to do it, but for right now, I will, it's too important.
Yeah.
That, I won't stop
You
doing
go
it.
tell the governor you need additional funding.
We need
a
you to
raise.
keep.
Me, I would love for you to tell the governor. And since I am one of 3 members of the governor's office who's approved by the Senate.
There you go. So this is the thing that I think is really important. We had a lot of angst about the MOUs not being signed. And the campuses kept saying, but we've sent it and they won't sign and they won't sign. But having a person sit in front of them to say, let me explain the MOU with campus police and municipal police is a game changer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we do need to make sure for campuses that haven't scheduled yet, it's chief and local law enforcement, right?
So we've done both. So I've done some where Teresa at ULL, I think she started it. It was her idea first. I'll give her the credit. We'll give her the credit for it. Cause she's, and if y'all don't know Teresa, in Title IX years, she has been there 120 years. It's usually,
It seems like
yeah, well, that's what I said, in Title IX years, it's 120 years. But she's been there for a long time, but what she did is she had the detectives for ULL plus the chief, and they invited detectives and or chiefs of police, sometimes in the smaller parishes, it is the chief, that's the detective in Lafayette. She invited all of them in Lafayette Parish. So there's 8 municipalities in Lafayette Parish. And so she invited all of them. And then I think that sort of led to the symposium, which led me to the idea of doing the panel discussion at the Chiefs Association, because it's great that she invited everybody in Lafayette Parish, all of those municipalities, but you miss Sunset, you miss Grand Coteau, you miss New Iberia, you miss, because we know that there are still students that drive there from those areas. And what if they live with another student? Or what if we also know that, sometimes they go out and, they'll go to St. Martinville, or at least I did, cross over to St. Martin Parish when I was a student at USL. Used to cross over to St. Martin Parish to go to a certain bar there. If something happens there, it's the same thing as it. So I think you know what bar I went to because you're laughing. But we know that if something happens at Fred's, and it's involving students, we want campus police to know about it as well. Well, if something happens, in St. Martinville at a bar with a bunch of college students, we want to know. Campus wants to know about that as well.
What do you call this training? What's the name of what you just?
It's power-based training for law enforcement. And so
How long does it take?
It's about an hour and a half.
So do you remember the bill we did on the trauma-informed training?
Yes.
It was an hour and a half?
Yes.
And what it took?
Yes.
Yeah. Could we do the same thing on this, where law enforcement would be required?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you would want to add it to all post-certified, because it's a very different and very specific training that campuses need. And your chiefs need to be aware of it, and they need to trickle that down to their detectives in the municipalities. But to add it to all post training, I think is gonna get lost.
So there is a law right now that requires anyone who investigates sexual assault to do training on neurobiology of trauma, trauma-informed interviewing. The problem is that that's another one of those feel-good measures we probably have that not many people are in compliance with. So I'd love for there to be more information where it's like people are published, because the thing about campuses, the ones that do have the ability, like full ability to do sexual assault investigations, they should be trained. But then I think not all of them have that jurisdiction. Like I'll use LSU as an example. We know they have full jurisdiction. And so whoever's there typically are the ones investigating sexual assault. So those individuals should have that trauma-informed training, but it's like, it's not really a one and done kind of thing. You gotta stay up to date with
Because it's
everything.
turning over,
Right,
right.
right.
Yeah.
But this training where you take campus law enforcement and local law enforcement, this is raising awareness. This is not that level of training.
Right, right. This is making sure, so the initial, so we've done, let me back up a little bit and clarify. So I've done two different types of training. So we've done the one type of training, which has been the detective. So like, and I'm gonna use UL again as an example. We did all of the local chiefs of police and the sheriff, or I believe leaving sheriffs out of this because we have included sheriffs as well. Or their detectives with the detectives and the chief from the campus. In addition to that, I have also done on some campuses, and I can get you a list. I don't know if I could do it off the top of my head. I have done all of the police officers, and that's a different training than the first one. I go, the one where you have the chiefs in there, I have the MOUs, and I talk to them about this is the MOU, this is what your responsibilities are under the MOU, this is why you have to sign it. Then I have the one where I'm talking to the police officers, not just the detectives on campus. So for instance, at the Southern system, I went and did all of their police officers and talked to them about some things that are a little bit different that maybe I wouldn't have the conversation with, like somebody from BRPD. So when I was at Southern Baton Rouge campus, the training was like, we talked about, here are some things that maybe you can do. So one thing is, first, they have to know you are a responsible employee. So that's number one, which is different than local law enforcement. A local law enforcement can know about a sexual assault for someone. They can see somebody's name on a sexual assault forensic kit. And if that person doesn't report, they don't have to report that unless they're a minor, then they're mandatory reporters. But if it's an adult and the adult says, I don't want to report this to police, and even if police has a conversation with them, they don't have to report it. They don't have to open a case on it. That is not the case with campus law enforcement. Campus law enforcement are employees of the university and they are responsible employees. So if they know about a case, they have to open, if they know a case of domestic violence or sexual assault, whether that victim wants to report it or not, because they're a responsible employee, they have to report it to the Title IX office, right? And so whereas BRPD doesn't have that same responsibility to report it to the Title IX office.
But what about
They can, but they don't have that same
But what about
responsibility.
whoever they have an MOU with? Like if whatever.
No, if they have, if Southern of Baton Rouge has an MOU with Baton Rouge Police, and they go and they pick up a Baton Rouge police officer goes and picks up a sexual assault kit, and it's supposed to be an anonymous kit. And it's, so that's what we call an unreported kit. We call it an anonymous kit. I want to have a sexual assault forensic kit done, but I don't want to report this to police. I just want to have it in case I decide later. That Baton Rouge police officer is under no obligation to notify the Title IX office unless it is a minor. And then they're under mandatory reporting, and then they have to report to a variety of places. I guess even if it is a minor, they don't have to report it to Title IX either, but they do have to report it, but they don't have to report it to Title IX. Okay, but and we did have a case where a campus police officer took a forensic kit from a nurse. She had accidentally put the name on it. And now that campus police officer knew that this student had been sexually assaulted, but she did not want to file a police report. He still had to tell the Title IX office about it. And so that's something that we've had to educate our forensic nurses on. And we educate our local law enforcement because it's different. And you have a lot of them who maybe have come from a municipality where they need to learn that. And so that's something that we do go over a lot in that training when I'm training individual law enforcement. Another thing we go over a lot too is in like stalking cases, or not just stalking to the level of stalking, but harassment. So when you are talking about a student, you may tell BRPD, and I'm using that because I did Southern on campus. BRPD may have somebody come into the first district. It's not the first district. What's the one right there by campus, by LSU's campus? Whatever. So a student may go into the first district and say, hey, this guy that I have class with and lives in my dorm keeps coming by my dorm. He won't leave me alone. He keeps knocking on the door. He keeps asking me out. I keep telling him no, he won't leave me alone. He keeps harassing me, calling me, blah, 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 blah. BRPD, they've got a lot on their plate. They're gonna say, come back when he does something to you and we can file charges again, and you can file charges against him. But if BRPD were to go and talk to that kid and say, dude, you're gonna get arrested, that may be so foreign in that kid's mind that I'm gonna get arrested. Because there are kids out there that doesn't mean anything, right? And I know that's hard to understand, but it really doesn't mean anything to them. Jail is this abstract thing. Getting arrested is this abstract thing. That would never happen to me, right? But if the police officer from Southern and Baton Rouge goes and knocks on that kid's, and you go and report, your student goes and report, and that officer, which, not to say campus police aren't busy, but a lot of times they're not, they have a little bit more time and a little bit more interaction with the students because that's part of their policing, right? More community-based policing. They go and talk to this kid and say, not you're gonna go to jail, but you can get kicked out of school for this. She can bring a Title IX complaint against you and you can get kicked out of school for this. That's much realer. That's not very good English, but that's very real to these students, right? That's something that is real in their mind rather than jail. And so that's sort of the training that I have with. So there have been two separate trainings that we've done.
So I know we're on a time.
I know.
Crunch.
Give us the training.
I know. I could have given you all the training by then. I know. Look, Brian just wrote me a note telling me I'm talking too much. Stop me. That I'm talking too much.
But all of this stuff is so very important because I'm going back to the fact that what has led us to this whole panel discussion was with the incident that happened with LSU. I am not letting that go in that you have not gotten a response back. If I interpret it incorrectly, then you correct me. You have not gotten a response back for you to go and do the training there.
I've had conversations with all the people that I mentioned, given them my card and said what I could do for them. And I have not heard back from anybody to schedule anything.
For me. So, Mr. Manuel, I want you to make sure, and I see my good friend, Ms. Kim Robinson is back there, that I want an answer back responding to her today when they're going to set this up. That is a slap personally in my face because this is what brought us here. And of all the universities around this table, it is the one with the least response to this simple request. And I am personally offended. And by the end of today, Madam Commissioner,
Yes.
I want somebody to call me and tell me when this meeting is going to be
It
scheduled.
will happen.
Senator Barron,
Okay.
just to clarify, LSU has had human trafficking training and the training on trauma informed. We just haven't had it with Monica. Our law enforcement has had the training. We're not having training. We've had the human trafficking training through POST. Because all of our officers are post-certified. They
Right,
go
they've
through
had
the academy.
this, yeah, the 7 hour human trafficking training that all post-certified folks
And
get. It's an
so-
online training.
And Marshall has been checking, he's waiting for a class, so he will reach out to Monica today to schedule a private class for LSU, but
Yeah.
he did get her card in
what's the
September, but
difference then?
yes, we've had the human trafficking training and we also have,
But everybody has the human trafficking training. Every post-certified law enforcement, that's something Senator
we
Barrow.
have annual
I mean,
training.
Senator Mizell, the 7 hours of online training. Yes, yes.
And we also do annual training and we do trauma-informed training with a nationally recognized instructor, Tom Tremblay. So we don't.
These receiving the same training that you provide? Okay.
They're doing
Certified training, that's really good training.
It is, yes. So they have not, and that's all I'm saying. I'm saying that I have not done the training on their campus. I've not been informed of that they had other types of training. And Tom is a great trainer. He does great training. Now, I don't know if he's doing the specific state power-based training or if he's probably just doing the neurobiology of trauma, which is a good training. It's a valid, very good, valid training, absolutely.
He's one of the best law enforcement trainers. But
Absolutely.
the problem is that, like Monica is saying, he's training them to investigate sexual assaults that are gonna be moving forward through the criminal legal system. He's not training them on the specific Louisiana stuff. And Tom Tremblay, I would say, yes, that's amazing training.
Yes.
But he also is gonna say very much up, he's not teaching them on the Louisiana power-based violence stuff. He's renowned for getting law enforcement to really increase their I guess investigations that are more thorough, they're better, and that proceed to prosecution.
Right.
This is not just what we're talking about.
Right. His training is fantastic. It's better than my neurobiology of trauma for sure. I 100% agree with that. But it's not the specific state and it doesn't touch on the Title IX information.
And we receive our Title IX training through Josh in the Title IX office at LSU, but we're not saying we won't do your
Right.
training. What I'm saying is that we are having training. I don't want you to think that we're not doing what
Right.
you instructed us to do or any training. We are
So-
doing exactly that.
Yeah.
But Marshall will follow up with Monica. He's been following up, but all LSU PD has been taking the national training and it's also coordinated with BRPD, who is also our partner here in Baton Rouge. So we're not doing training.
I think if they just made sure she knew that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just making
Even
sure
if,
she-
I mean,
yeah. Didn't know that.
She
So
probably
that's not good.
Yeah. And Josh's training covers Josh's training, which I've seen, is the procedures and policies of Title IX. But it doesn't cross, and that's
So we
Yeah.
will take your training.
well, I mean, you don't have to take my training. I didn't know that y'all were doing the other
Yours
trainings.
as well, because we want to be in full compliance, so we're gonna take yours as well. I didn't want you to think we weren't doing any training. We are doing training, and we will make sure that we are signed up to take hers. We will schedule her to be with all LSU law
And so
enforcement.
all the training that you guys are taking, making sure that we all know that, because what is a
Right.
problem is that we didn't know that, because I just asked the commissioner, did she know that? And she did not know that. So that for me was
But-
a breakdown of communication, right? And we did not know that.
But
So we'll, go ahead.
no, Senator, I was just gonna say, in terms of like the reporting out to you all in terms of the training that we are receiving, if there's a request that we provide you with the training that we're receiving, we're happy to do that.
Yeah.
Well, we never had that request to provide that list of training that the law enforcement personnel is taking, but we can certainly provide you with
That
that.
would be helpful.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. So I know we've got I know it's
Thank you for your
push us
update.
along.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's 11:30, and we now are going to hear from the systems update. So let me ask this question before we do that,
Yes.
because I don't want to slight any of you. Can we go to 12:30? Is that okay with everybody?
That's fine.
There's
Yeah.
snacks in the corner. If anybody gets hungry.
So it'll be on my calendar.
Update the. You need me to extend the calendar here?
Yes, please.
Oh, Okay.
Bree will do it.
Working on it.
Okay, okay, all right. So we will extend this meeting to 12:30, and at this time, Dr. Reed, I'll give it back over to you for the systems update.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Monica, thank you for the training information. I have a note that you're gonna send us anyone who hasn't done the law enforcement training with with the
Yes,
municipal.
yes.
So we can pass that on.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's great. Okay, so system updates, Bree has given the systems, a little bit of a template, I believe, for information to share with you. And I believe the amazing Eric Calais is first up, University of Louisiana System.
Thank you, and thank you Bree, for putting me first, I think it's. I can get it over with, but I can't anticipate the questions. But, good morning and. Post afternoon. Very good. All right, so we'll start off with our budget summaries. And most of our institutions are using their monies the same way, and here are the allocations. We've been going on with the initial amount that was allocated to all of our institutions. And you'll notice at the bottom, the system office, we've kept a small portion for ourselves, just for training and such. So the campuses within the UL system are utilizing their allocated funds strategically to enhance Title IX and power-based violence initiatives, focusing on personnel expansion, professional development, technological enhancements, and outreach. Personnel expansion is, of course, a significant area of focus, demonstrating campuses' commitment to enhancing Title IX and power-based violence compliance. Staffing enhancements include hiring specialized roles such as investigators, coordinators, and administrative support. For example, Southeastern is adding a dedicated director, while Northwestern has introduced a deputy Title IX coordinator and stipends for key roles. These enhancements aim to provide efficiency and effectiveness of the Title IX processes. Professional development is prioritized across all campuses to ensure staff are well equipped to handle Title IX and power-based violence cases effectively. Training programs such as ATIXA memberships and workshops help build expertise. Several campuses are leveraging technology to streamline operations and improve case management. Examples include Magnese's investment in Maxient, case management software, and vector solutions for prevention and.
I'm just wondering, how many vacancies are there? I see you're trying to expand your position, so how many spots that you expect to be filled that are vacant right now?
Okay, so all of our campuses have a Title IX coordinator. Some of our campuses wish to or have expanded their offices to include deputy Title IX coordinators or an administrative support person.
But I mean, do you know how many are?
Oh, currently they're all filled, except
they're
the
all-
director position at Southeastern.
Okay,
They're
that's a
getting
new
ready to fill
position.
that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for that question.
All but one you said?
Yeah, Southeastern's about to
Southeastern.
fill.
A director
It's
position.
a direct position.
Yes.
Previously filled because everyone has a Title IX director, right?
Well, this is in addition to the Title IX coordinator
I see. Got it.
for Southeastern.
Got it.
Okay. Grambling has purchased tablets for incident reporting, so they use their monies for that, some of their monies. And of course, these tools enhance efficiency and facilitate better tracking and resolution for cases. All of our campuses do awareness, outreach, and prevention. They're emphasizing prevention through awareness campaigns and student engagement initiatives. Nichols, for example, allocates funds to promotional items and presenters. ULL invested recently in campus climate survey incentives to boost participation. And these efforts underscore a commitment to fostering safer, more inclusive environments. Memberships to professional organizations such as ATIXA are common investments for our campuses, and it allows our campuses to keep with best practices and focus on regulatory changes. Funds have been directed toward outreach events and speaker engagement such as McNeese's sexual assault speakers and ULL's prevention programming. And some of our campuses do use third-party expertise. Several institutions, including ULL and UNO, have allocated funds for consulting services to supplement in-house expertise. This includes hiring investigators and decision makers to handle complex cases, ensuring impartiality and adherence to regulations. Sometimes our campuses do encounter cases where there may be a staff member, a high-ranking staff member, and a student, a case like that, that may be a little too complicated and touchy for our on-campus investigators to handle, and so we will typically outsource. In times past, we have used Atixa. Currently, our campuses are engaging the services of Grand River, which is another Title IX agency.
What's the name of it?
Grand River Solutions.
Okay, yeah.
Smaller allocations for supplies, promotional items, and travel show thoughtful spending to maximize resources while addressing immediate needs, such as engaging materials and supporting outreach campaigns.
So good.
Yes, ma'am.
All your different campuses, are they sharing what they've learned with each other? You know, are they, so they're making the best use of what one has benefited from and coordinating the best practices among themselves? So
Yeah.
don't spend your time doing something when I know this works over here. Okay.
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question.
Yeah.
We meet.
Take me to lunch after that.
I might. So I meet with our Title IX coordinators bi-weekly. And that is an opportunity for them to share their experiences. They may have challenges with certain cases that provides them a safe space to talk about those things and of course share best practices.
But you also do system training.
Yes.
Part of your allocation for your system, you all annually do a system training.
Yes, I was gonna talk about it later, but I can't talk about it now. Okay. So we do system training, and so October 28th and 29th, this past October, we held a training on the campus of ULL. It was a 2-day intensive training, and we hired an expert from Grand River Solutions to deliver that training. It was well received, and it was on a smaller scale. We have been doing summits, which have been helpful, but this year we wanted to focus on our Title IX teams and provide them with specific training. Great, thank you. You're welcome. Any questions about the spending before I move on to the next interesting part about the incident report updates?
Well, training updates next, right?
Yes. Training updates.
Yeah.
Oh. Somebody mixed up
Incident, yeah.
information here.
Okay.
Which is fine. So currently, we have approximately 12,013 employees in the system across our institutions. 72% of those individuals have been trained. And I must say, as all of you know, the number of responsible employees, it is a moving target. We're constantly hiring new people. People are leaving. So at the end of, as of last week, I'm gonna say, that is where we are with the number of responsible employees. 72% trained. All of our confidential advisors have been trained. Our campuses are making a push, of course, before the end of the year to have 100% compliance.
Because legally due by December 31st.
That is correct.
Got it.
Yes, ma'am.
Got it.
So we're pushing.
Gotcha.
So you have 70 confidential advisors across what, 9?
9 is.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that's like 10, does one have 20 and one have 1?
Oh,
I
no,
mean,
ma'am.
is it
No,
pretty
ma'am.
equally
It's-
distributed across?
It's dependent upon the size of our institutions. I would say.
The ratio is 1 to 1,500, one confidential advisor to every 1,500 students.
Oh, great, okay.
You guys had us define it.
And that's based on
Exactly.
numbers from the International Association of Counseling Standards.
Thank you, Allison. In fact, that worked and I'm creative.
She's the more comprehensive team here.
Dr. Kelly, I attended a summit, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And I was trying to find it on my calendar because all my time is just kind of all merged together. But it was absolutely wonderful, and it was one of the things that I truly appreciate because it seemed like y'all had everybody that participated with anything with power-based violence there. Participating, taking in questions from the audience, student participation. So I don't know if you're gonna talk a little bit about that or not, but I did want to highlight that because I really appreciate the intentional effort to really be engaged and really making this an item that is front and center for everybody.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for
So
that.
when was that?
That was last October.
Oh.
Yes, that was October 2023. I know the time just flies by.
Okay.
Yes, October last year.
And so y'all have it every year. So that's what y'all had this past October as well?
Yes, on a smaller
On a
scale.
smaller scale? Okay,
Yes.
got it.
Yes.
Got it.
And so next year, we'll probably go back to the one where you were part of the panel, the one that you were calling October 2023. We'll go back to having a larger event.
Okay, I just wanted to mention that because, again, it was top notch. It was inclusive of everyone involved with the power-based violence issue. And people were participating, talking about what was working, what needed improvement, or what needed to be changed. And I really truly appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Yes, and another reason we went with a smaller scale event is because of we thought we would have to implement the 2024 regs, but we did not.
Right.
So we wanted to make sure that our Title IX teams understood where we were in terms of the regs and that we were still focusing on the 2020 regs. So that's what's going on with our responsible employees, again, making a huge push to make sure everybody is before the end of the year, which seems like tomorrow. That's right. So I'll just talk a little bit about, there we go, the incident report updates. So currently, and these numbers are from the April reporting cycle and the October reporting cycle. So formal complaints, power-based violence, we've had 11, and 3 of those were actual findings, and 26 formal complaints across our institutions for Title IX and 10 actual findings. And it seems like it has been taking approximately 45 to 60 days for our campuses to resolve.
Is an actual finding, is that definition meaning like somebody was held responsible for?
Yes.
Okay.
Just a little bit about what you have a question, I'm sorry.
So you had 11 complaints, formal complaints, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And the findings were on 3,
Correct.
and then 26 under Title IX, the findings were 10. So can you, I know we're crunched for time, but can you, in a nutshell, explain to me what happened to the 8 that didn't proceed and the 16 that didn't proceed?
Sure. So
What was in common with those?
yeah, so it just depends. The complainant sometimes did not want to go forward and go through the whole investigation. In some instances, the investigations had been completed and they did not find the respondent responsible.
Right.
So that's basically it in a nutshell.
And I guess that's where I have a question. So of the 11, were all the 11 to completion or was there a greater number before that? Like to where, I guess I'm trying to figure out how many went through the formal process to get to the 3 findings or how many of the complainants withdrew in some way?
Okay, so of the 11 here, these 11 are actual formal complaints. They're not just reports made to
Right.
Okay.
the Title IX.
So formal
We have more
complaints.
reports.
Right,
Of course.
and so all 11 of the formal complaints were
Withdrew.
seen through adjudication?
Yes,
Okay, so there was none from this 11 that withdrew.
correct. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yes.
so 3 of 11, there were findings, and I guess trying to understand like what the determination, I think, you know, whenever we're seeing this, at least from my vantage point, it's always like, okay, well, I'm always suspicious, and that's just because that's my role as an advocate, to where I'm always like, okay, well, what resulted? Was it because of the lack of evidence? And, not making it clear to people that just because there maybe wasn't a finding doesn't mean it was a false allegation, and that sort of education on that, so.
Right, and your perspective makes 100% sense, yes.
Cause I hate how some people may look at that and then immediately think that those other ones were somehow false allegations. That's not the
Right,
case.
right.
Exactly.
But this is a very private, this doesn't happen really in the open.
Right, and I must say, that's why I appreciate the reporting out that we have to do, because on the reports. I say the report, but the information we have to provide,
Look at it.
right? It has more information.
That's what it is.
You know, so it says basically what transpired, what
Exactly.
happened,
Right.
exactly.
How was it resolved? What it is,
And so
all of that's
those-
in the report.
Right,
Right.
and those are the reports that are published to our website,
That's
and for everybody to digest.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I'll push us along.
You
Oh,
want-
wait, no,
want me
yes,
to
I'm
finish?
sorry, yes. Show us your
I
pictures
love
real quick.
pictures don't work, how that works.
Yes, yes.
What they say. So these are photos from Grambling State University. They have several outreach initiatives for faculty, staff, and students to provide information about Title IX, poverty, violence, policies, and practices. Most importantly, as with all of our campuses, Grambling provides outreach to ensure that all stakeholders know how to report sexual misconduct, because, we have a lot of students on our campuses. So we want to make sure that they know, hey, here's where you need to report, and provide them with that information. Nichols, they basically do the same thing, a lot of outreach initiatives. They have a wide array of promotional materials that they have found useful in letting students know about Title IX and power-based violence. Southeastern, and I love their promotional for Southeastern University, large scale events, they have Denim Day. It's a midday resource and informational fair held annually in April during Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And it's supported by campus groups like FYE and admissions teams, and they often dress in denim. They also have Strikeout Sexual Assault Tailgate. And it's a late afternoon tailgate held in partnership with athletics and the Division of Student Affairs. It combines resources and informational browsing with community engagement. So I think they have one planned for April 15th of 2025, if anybody's interested in attending. Ongoing programming and awareness campaigns that they have, tabling events, collaborative events with LaFasa, thank you, LaFasa, and other partners to provide resources and information. And of course, frequent on-campus tabling to increase awareness and accessibility. If they don't see you, they don't know you're there. It's basically.
Right.
See, have you almost yet? And of course, they always demonstrate a strong commitment to fostering a safe and respectful campus through a variety of engaging and impactful Title IX initiatives. These include certified bystander intervention training, consent education, through events like Coffee and Consent, and interactive programs such as domestic violence, partner violence awareness bingo. The campus also provides self-defense workshops, on-campus advocacy, and opportunities for dialogue through activities like Coffee with a Cop and Title IX awareness tabling.
So on this one, I see you got Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Is there an effort to get into the Greek system at all the universities and kind of get the information to them on their
Yes, I would say
responsibility?
most of our institutions are doing that.
Okay.
Yes. Our institution, I can say this is a great thing about our institutions, and I'm sure the systems see that with their institutions as well. It's important for them to have those partnerships. Partnerships with the Greek community,
Right.
partnerships
Right.
with Student Life, partnerships with the campus police and
Right.
such. So, yes. A great question. And then here we are at our event that I spoke about earlier, October 28th, 29th. And I want to also highlight that Lafayette has a student advocacy group. They're called It's on Us. They're lower right-hand side. And so what we are trying to do as a system is we are trying to make sure all of our campuses have student groups like this to make sure that we have students focused on sexual assault prevention and those types of things.
Great. Thank you for the pictures. I love the interesting different topics that they are having these around. I think they are very catchy and I'm assuming very successful. You're welcome.
Yeah, yes, they are. And thank you. Any questions?
Push us along because you're not gonna be able to say them twice.
Yeah.
Y'all gonna be decapitated with the clicker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sam's.
There you go. So the university system updates.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. 5 minutes. 5 minutes morning.
So with our system, with the funding, we've spent it on personnel expansion, professional development, ensuring that all of our coordinators and all of our employees that are involved in the power-based violence from Title IX process, that they're trained. We also have more of a system down approach as it comes through the memberships. So we have the TICSA membership for our entire system. We also just recently combined our Maxient contract. So that's the case management system. So our Baton Rouge campus, the Law Center, and New Orleans had their own Maxient contracts, but we did a system contract now so that all of the institutions have Maxient. It's actually all being managed through the same system, I guess system, so that it also helps us to track amongst our institutions if a student is having issues on multiple campuses and allows us to better pull data. So we're working on building out that process right now. So we also, with professional services, we had to contract out some investigations. So that's one of the expenses that we've had system level as well as on our campuses. With personnel expansion, I will say we do currently have one vacancy. So at our Shreveport campus, we do not have a full-time Title IX coordinator right now. We have an interim who he's trained. He's doing a dual role now on 2 campuses for me, but he's ensuring that everything at Shreveport happens. So anybody that's looking for a job to be a Title IX coordinator, please apply.
Shreveport and where?
Southern University at Shreveport.
And where else?
He's doing a dual role. One of my employees,
On that campus.
he's on a different campus. He's my investigator, but on that campus, he is interim Title IX. My Baton Rouge campus.
Wow.
So he's working with them to make sure that all of their any complaints that they have is done and they're getting all of their training. So the title for that position is Director for Compliance. They're the Title IX and ADA coordinator for that university. So if anybody's looking, it's posted on their website under Human Resources. We've also did some technology. We have Otter AI on some of the campuses where it helps to transcribe those notes and those things to help the investigators. And print materials and office supplies. And this was the other campuses. I kind of went through them all. So with our training updates, I do know that we are doing a push right now to increase our training numbers. All of our chancellors today and the president got a list of everyone system-wide who did not complete their trainings so that they can start with that push. That is a big priority of our president. He has tasked my system office and HR with making sure we have a good platform. So we actually are going into we switched learning platforms. So we are moving from Moodle to Canvas. So now we have actually a built-in employee training system that's going to take place on January 1st for employees to be trained and for us to easily track them in that to ensure that they get their trainings done. And he's tasked HR with determining consequences for not timely doing your trainings and not so that we can ensure better compliance. So we are working on that.
But this is a December push.
Yes.
I mean, I heard you say January 1, new system.
New
but
system, but
it's all
December,
required. There you go.
yes, ma'am.
There you go. I need you to, that's it.
As of today, they,
You gotta deliver it in December.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
As of today, they received a list of
Okay.
all their employees on their campus that have not completed their mandatory trainings. I would say it's not just this trainings, it's all the state mandatory trainings.
Right.
So to help push that along
Okay.
within the rest of the month.
Thank you.
Do you know how many vacancies y'all have? Just the one?
In Title IX area, power-based violence, just
Just
the
the
one,
one.
yes, ma'am. And next is our incident reports. So these are just formal complaints. So with our formal complaints that we've had,
Is this the same cycle, April and October?
yes, ma'am. And these are our numbers. We had power-based violence, we had 5 actual findings. We didn't have any. A lot of that is because what we do is we tell our campus community, if they don't know where to report it to us, and we will help, it will go somewhere. If it's not power-based violence or Title IX, it doesn't just end there, it may go somewhere else. So I know with these power-based violence reports, the kind of trend with those is they were more human resource matters. So they ended up being transferred to either like academic affairs to be handled as like a student grade appeal grievance, because some of them were grade appeal grievances. But out of the abundance of caution, we tell everybody to report to us so that we
Y'all
can,
can determine.
yes, ma'am.
Wait, so you're saying the 5 formal complaints that y'all received, you have 0 findings because those 5 complaints were transferred to a different place for like human resource complaints? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying that there was no findings. Majority of those were transferred somewhere else.
So,
Like
so
a grade
you only
appeal?
had 5, and of the 5, the majority were inappropriate. There weren't actual power-based violence complaints. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Like they
It's like
were,
really, really
But we did-
scary low.
well, we did have some Title IX complaints and we had findings on those.
So
I still
I
don't
wanna
get
make
that
sure,
mixed up.
to Morgan's point, because my board asks this question every time, why is the reporting so low? So I know we're crunched on time, I wanna hear from everyone, but I wanna make sure we have a placeholder on that point about low reporting
And
overall in higher ed.
And I will say that we have way more reports than this. This is just the ones that are formal complaints, where they're either, like, they titled it as a formal complaint, or they, so we took it through that process, even though it might have just been a report. But, we have way more reports than this. This is just what we report out as formal complaints.
So just a quick question, I know we're pressed for time, but like for the other systems, like if y'all have a complaint that comes to you for power-based violence and it's not a power-based violence report, your numbers that you had, I think it was like 11, are all of those 11 power-based violence reports actual power-based violence reports, or did that include numbers that maybe would have been something that was human resource related, grade change? I'm just trying to make sure we're characterizing those 5 reports as, like, it seems like we shouldn't include the numbers that are human resource reports, because it's not a formal complaint under.
Well, it came through so how our policy works with it is that if it's a formal complaint and it is non-Title IX related, just for power-based violence, not Title IX matters, it goes to human resources, because it can cover a bunch of things. And I will say the Board of Regents sample policy does say that we can transfer that to the discrimination policy under human resources. So that's where that's handled. But if the human resource director decides that when they review it, that it's actually one of those power-based violence, then they will report that outcome to us. But when we checked on these outcomes, some of those were transferred either somewhere else, or it was determined that there wasn't power-based violence based on that formal complaint, if that makes sense.
But all those determinations are being made through HR.
Only for employees that it's not Title IX. And when I say employees, I mean employee responded.
So what made it a formal complaint to begin with?
So they might have titled it formal complaint, so to
Stay.
the complainant, so.
Oh, so I'm filing a formal complaint. I don't understand how like a student would say, oh, I want to make this complaint formal. I mean, to me, if they're making a complaint. You're deciding, or whoever that receives it decides if it's accepted as a formal complaint. No, that's not how that works.
No, ma'am, and majority of these.
We're talking about two different things. I think there's I don't want to say a language barrier, but there's some sort of a barrier between what we want to accomplish with a complaint that comes to your office for Title IX and what's actually happened.
We see that a lot. We students will submit something and be like, oh, I thought I did submit a formal complaint.
Yeah, right. So that, and maybe therein, we need to like have a tighten up the language or the process because.
I don't know how, and maybe I heard wrong, but like a grade change situation would even like it's
come in
either
as
one
a
that's
formal
based on like
complaint to a
sexual
power-based
harassment or
violence.
something. Like I got this grade because I was told if I didn't do this, or it's not. I don't know why, like, so it's confusing for me to see 5, 0 with actual findings, but then I'm told the majority, so I would imagine at least 3 are not really based on these findings.
So some of that is employee-based too, so because of the trainings and what we've been doing, they know to say that it's a formal complaint, so we have to take it through the process. Cause if they call it a formal complaint, we have to take it through that process. As opposed to if it's just a report, that's where we can help guide them. If it goes, if they decide, and we can say, well, this doesn't look like it's power-based violence or Title IX. This may be something that academic affairs or student affairs or something else, but if they file a formal complaint, then we have to bring them through this process. And some of these were actually employees that filed power-based violence matters that I don't.
Employee grievances.
Yeah, that were actually employee grievances.
They're actually Title VII.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and I wouldn't even say that they might not even be Title VII, they're really just employee grievances as opposed.
In some cases, yes.
And because the.
Yes.
And so you're basically being seen as the complaint department.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why is on here then?
Okay, so Morgan is saying, why is it on here? So your process is that if they come to you, you take the information, whether it's appropriate to be for you or not.
Yes, and if they call it a formal complaint, then we have to go through that process, because they called it that, and we want to make sure that we adequately report our numbers.
Gather it. I
Yes.
got you. Okay.
And as in our reporting, that's all specifically spelled out with what transpired with the kid.
Got it. So you got nothing that was what
Was real
was seen
powerful.
as a power-based violence complaint. And that whole reporting, you got nothing.
No, ma'am, not an actual finding.
That's incredible.
But we did have some findings under Title IX. So we had 4 Title IX formal complaints. We had 2 findings there after the process, and the other 2, I believe they found them not responsible.
What happened with those findings? What happened? Like, what was the consequence?
So I believe one of them was an employee, well, 2 of them was the same employee, so the employee received disciplinary,
What was
sanctions
that?
for-
What was the discipline? Curious, he's still on campus?
Yeah.
Well, he was suspended 2 months without pay.
But is he back?
Trying to think, I don't think he's back yet. I think he
But
comes
he's coming back.
Yes,
Maybe in.
because this is, the other part of that is that even though we did that, we do have to match our procedure with the tenure revocation rules and all of those different processes that they get with tenure as well.
So that student could still be there and see this guy on campus and.
So we are working with our coordinator and our safety. These 2 are from our Tuno campus, so Director Cooper is making sure with supportive measures to make sure that we can minimize any type of contact. and ensure that the students are not in this professor's class.
That has to know.
Yes,
Yes.
and the employee also is mandated to do specific training. In addition to the state mandated training.
So let me tell you what my problem is. I will never forget the conversation that we had with students who talked about their regret and actually coming forward because they saw the perpetrator.
Right.
That to me is one of the things that resonates with me more than anything else. And some of them dropped out of school or said that they were dropping out of school. And we gotta figure out a better way. So is it possible that he could be transferred somewhere else? And that could be his choice in terms of whether or not, if he has to come to Baton Rouge, or whatever the case may be. That for me is a problem. And I would like to know like the final outcome of that situation. Got it.
Will do. I'll make sure that you are aware.
Thank you.
I have a question. I see that, a concern of mine is that I see that there's not consistency in how the numbers are being reported.
Right.
Like what is, like, we've had two reports and I think that what was considered power-based violence as being reported was different for both of them. And by the time we're finished with the reports here, we're gonna have four different, so it's hard to gauge like outcomes if you have different parameters.
Right, I pulled up Southern's policy and I'm really confused how just because something is a formal complaint, even if it's a disgruntled employee, it can be specific about what is power-based violence. I don't understand why a disgruntled employee who has a formal complaint and it's just a disgruntled employee situation, how that even gets counted just because they said it was a formal complaint, that doesn't make sense to me.
Because in the portion that describes what a formal complaint is, they call it a formal complaint and they sign it.
But
So.
And they call it power-based violence.
And they call it power-based violence. So in-
Power-based violence, and it gives you a list of all the different things that could be power-based.
But it's not just that. That's not an
Like,
exhaustive.
where, I
Yeah,
mean, I'm so.
You can take advantage.
Yeah, the list is not exhaustive, and what's going on now, it's because of the training, which we're doing. I feel like we're doing a good job with training and awareness, is that we're getting more of these matters that's not really power-based.
Not
They're
what the
just
intent
saying,
was.
not what
So
the
you're
intent
saying
is,
the-
they're saying.
There's 5, including the HR disgruntled, that is really, that makes it even lower. And it's scary, it really is, because that doesn't, if you're saying you only have 5, and that includes the ones that anybody deems formal. And it could be something that has nothing to do with our understanding of power-based violence, then really, it's really not high numbers, right? Like, if that's all of them.
It's low reporting.
Yes, but our reporting numbers are higher. The issue that we have is that the students are, especially with the students, they are not wanting to file the formal complaints, because that's the issue I'm getting with my Title IX coordinators, is that they come in, they reach out, they do multiple outreaches. Either they're not trying to respond to us, or they don't want to move forward in the process. So we offer them the supportive measures and move forward.
Well, I would feel like if I were a student, why would I report if the employee that I'm reporting is still gonna have a job on campus? Right.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a concern.
Knowledge is power here. I think that a lot of times, you know, LaFosse put together a piece that we distributed to a lot of universities where it was a palm card that you opened it up and it was literally a flow chart of like, if you're, where to go from here, where to go from there. And it's amazing how many students we interact with our campus sexual assault coordinator, who I'm gonna introduce later, that don't know any of that. And they don't know, like, it's so difficult. Like, what are all these rules that we have, right? I mean, you've just experienced the worst trauma of your life, and now all of a sudden, I gotta figure out what's a formal, what isn't a formal, and what department I'll go to, and what's a confidential. I mean, it's just too complicated, too difficult. And you have this problem where the average student.
Seems intended almost, like.
What's that?
It seems intended.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the student is assaulted and then now what? Right? And it's just,
And then
it's
reassaulted
frustrating
by the
because
system.
the average kid that goes to that school that comes from Ohio, comes from Baton Rouge, or comes from wherever, they don't know. And it's hard. They don't know what, like, how many people didn't know that you could go formal or power-based, or was it my instructor, or was it my classmate, or was it, and then I have different roads to travel for every single one of them. And that's the difficulty. These kids just don't know.
No, but it seems, created to discourage.
Yeah.
And the regulations do that too. And so
Right.
the power-based violence process follows that.
So that's some of the.
We have to talk about that.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
We have to talk about that.
So, for the sake of time, let me go back to this, because I just said to the commissioner, I believe that we need to have another meeting dealing with just this issue, because there are more questions that I want to ask, because I want to get to why the numbers are so low.
Right.
And so this makes me wonder if what we're doing is even really working, because do the kids or the young people feel real confident that if they come, that they're going to have results? And I'm thinking, no, but I don't know that. So this is what I'm going to ask. And I would like to see if we could possibly come back maybe next month or by February at the latest to have a meeting to address just this particular issue.
Incident reporting,
Yes.
just incident
We
reporting.
need to get notice out to where the universities are posting about the meeting for students, because I think that students may have a lot to say about this. I have a feeling that they came to the table, they'd be like, well, I reported something and yeah, like, I don't know, there's.
No, that you're shaking my head.
Yeah, I think you should. I think you should invite students to let them talk, tell their side of everything.
Okay.
Excuse me, may I have a next comment? My name is Carrie Thomas. I am the Associate Vice Chancellor for Compliance for the Law Center at Southern. So I work with Mr. Sams.
Okay.
I'd also like to see you guys invite the people on the ground, the actual Title IX coordinators, because I bet you would get a different perspective. From my perspective, and my campus is pretty small, I have relationships with my campus. So sometimes when the numbers do come in, like I've also raised my concerns with Mr. Sams about the way formal complaints are reported. Because I've been doing this since 2018, so I've seen Title IX change. So I welcome all students to come in for whatever, I take all complaints. I don't care if it's HR or whatever, and then I work with the student on where the proper place, like I guide them through the proper place. So if it is it turns out to be a grievance that would be better handled from an academic grade appeal, the professor did, we had some issues. I walked them through that process so that as a Title IX coordinator, I still have that relationship with them. So I do think that maybe bringing Title IX coordinators, not the administrators who we report to, but the people on the ground who are working hand in hand with those students and faculty and employees, and really getting a better perspective about what we're seeing. What are the gaps? How is power-based violence, the policy itself or the law itself, like what are we seeing on the ground? How is it impacting the work that we do with students? Because a lot of times these reports are all numbers, quantitative. We're doing the qualitative work, right? Like we are engaging with students who sometimes they don't want to report, and it's our obligation not to have them go further, but to be their support through that entire process, to let them know they can always come back. So I just think we can get a holistic view of everything by also inviting maybe the Title IX coordinators who are working directly with the students to see what the gaps are, just for more information.
And we do have some representation with this panel.
Right, yeah.
I just wonder if there's gonna be honesty about it, because if there's a fear that they will be retaliated against if they tell the truth or something, and retaliation doesn't have to be legal retaliation, it could be bullying, it could be various types of.
Just be shady.
Exactly, they're not gonna say anything, it's gonna be like, oh, this is all great, and I think that there needs to be a way for people to submit some kind of comment, and I know that we are bound by public meetings and public records, and I feel like there's a lot to unpack, and it's hard because, whether there is a real fear of retaliation or it's, again, a subjective fear, it still exists.
I would love to see a survey by the people who contacted the office on what, how they felt their
Satisfaction
complaint was
survey.
handled. And, I mean, they wouldn't have to come in and testify.
Satisfaction survey. after
Right,
going
right.
through the
And look, that's what it takes. When Louisiana passed it to where sexual assault survivors didn't have to pay to get a protective order. I mean, they were still going to all these courthouses and getting charged. It took a team of all the centers, all the sexual assault centers, our attorney, to start making these random anonymous calls and take notes and go to the powers above and say, look, this is still a huge problem. It had to be, almost under the cloak of darkness, right? Like we had to do it as anonymously to figure out what was going on. What?
There's still some holding.
No, they are.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so we have 10 minutes and I want to make sure we use that adequately. I know we're gonna have a follow-up. Yes. So we want to hear from Amber and Todd for 5 minutes each and then come back to the next meeting, or do you want to hold the next two?
I do want to give them an opportunity,
Can we hear from each of you for 5 and then we'll
yeah.
come back with, yeah, thank you.
Let me scroll through all this. Jeremiah's slides here.
20 minutes worth, right?
Hi, Jeremy, man. Look at you.
Up to that, so
All that hard work, man. Boom.
Jeremiah, I really.
Okay, so I won't go through all the budgetary things. I'm not gonna belabor. We use it for training.
Yep.
System Office has an annual training contract with the TICSA where we train all of our Title IX teams 6 days a year. And then individual campuses also do
You
that.
used it for a lactation part?
Yes, one of our colleges did. Have you ever seen these? They're fabulous.
They're like at the airport?
There's one, yeah, and there's one in Oxford, New Orleans. And that's where I saw one, was Oxford, New Orleans. They're fabulous. So you can look through that, ask me questions at our follow-up meeting. We are about 91% completion of our training, which is not for lack of herding cats.
That's great.
That work is not easy, so the colleges and systems that have low numbers, I hear you. And all of our confidential advisors are trained. We have 60 when only required to have 35, so we are expanding that as well. We do have some higher numbers in terms of our incident reports, so I'll spend my majority of my time here on that.
You guys have any vacancies?
We do not have, we have 2 new coordinators, but we do not have any vacancies. We have 23 Title IX coordinators and deputy coordinators across our 12 colleges. I am in the process in my office of training a deputy coordinator. I'm the Title IX coordinator in the system office, and I'm also training a deputy coordinator currently. So I'm excited about that. Also in the process of hiring a grad assistant to help with some of the administrative work. So I would love a law student, anybody over there, or a policy student, grad student, so.
We're pretty sure we're gonna help you. It's open, you have 28 open on the power bank.
Yes, so this is an as of.
What's the usual reason they stay open?
Well, this is an as of date. So as of the time we did the April and October reports, those were still open. So those were in the adjudicative process. They hadn't gone to a hearing yet. They were still in the investigation. We didn't have a finding. We didn't have it determined whether they were responsible, not responsible. Might be the initial assessment, trying to follow up with the complaining of the parties. Overall, we had 53 total complaints, formal complaints. To put that in perspective, we had 71 reports. So of the 71, we have 53 formal. And then at the bottom of that, you will see how those are kind of broken out. The largest reason of where there are such low findings is because there were so many open at the time. So if they were referred to HR, if they were through informal resolution, or if they were, the majority of them were still open because of the dates. Those large number of cases, and 2 of those in particular were multiple complainants for a single response. So you might have had a whole cohort of nursing students, for example, filing a complaint against an instructor. So that is why I have a large number of those. We treat each of those as individual complaints, even though we might adjudicate them in one case. So I will let that rest. Let me digest that for a moment.
So this is as of October, so when we get the report at the end of the year, it will have resolution of all, whatever's been resolved.
For some of them, yes. For some of, like, if they go to HR, there's not a process in my system of where HR reports employee outcomes.
Got it.
So we are working through that.
For the resolution of power-based violence in Title IX, we would have it on reports. Yes.
And I may probably show this, like a lot of things, but like, do all the systems use the same terminology? Does the terminology you use under your other findings, does that match everybody's system?
It's pretty consistent.
So it's just that you chose to put yours on this report. Okay, okay. So we all.
Want to anticipate your questions. I don't have a fan.
Yeah,
and I don't want
good.
to. I don't want to be asked a question I don't know the answer to.
Yeah, and I know we're crunched for time. I just. Yeah,
Definitions.
yeah, I think that, because, I think there's a lot of gray area that we're missing all the subsets within these reasons and how do we clarify that in a way that addresses what that initial complaint was trying to address so that we don't get zero.
Right.
When somebody's, obviously, somebody's 42 people have had a reason to complain.
Right, absolutely.
Okay.
And our cases are taking between 60 and 90 days. I think a lot of reasons for our system, we have a larger number of non-traditional students who have competing conflicts. They have families, they have jobs. It takes longer. I also think that contributes to the larger number of complaints and reports that we get in our system. I think adults in general may be more comfortable with a legal type of business than an 18-year-old student.
Right, I'm sure.
So I think that is a contributing factor. When we first went into this whole Title IX power-based violence conversation with my system, the sentiment was, oh, we don't have residence halls. You're not going to have that many.
Right.
Which I fought against because perpetrators are smart. They're not doing it on campus, number one. And number two, we have adults we're dealing with who are comfortable with these processes and they're going to be more brave in the process. So anyway, I say that just.
And your pages look really nice.
Oh, thank you. Right. And we did have some, some events that, Denim Day that they mentioned. We do a women's leadership summit every year at our conference. And so really proud of the work our specifically.
Yeah, we did the day at the Capitol.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Here you go.
Excellent. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
so much.
Amber. Okay, now shoot.
Okay, thank you, Senators, quickly do this. So we've outlined for you our spending in terms of what we've spent across the system over the course of the last year. As you know, you all have provided funding of $1 million for each system. Roughly about $800,000 of that has been dedicated to the main campus, with $200,000 being split among 5 campuses. In addition to the monies that have been received from the state, specifically for power-based violence, LSU has invested an additional $1.1 billion on top of that. And so our total spending across the system is a little over $2 million. And that spending has been for personnel, it's been for training and development, it's for administrative services, such as services related to hearings and so on and so forth. In terms of where we are with our training, as you know, we have 2 different types of folks that we train. We have responsible employees. Those are folks who are mandated by law to report out. Currently, we are at 90% completion for that training across our system. And with regards to our confidential advisors, we have 58 confidential advisors across the system, 30 of whom are on the main campus, and we're at 100% completion in terms of our training for our confidential advisors.
How many vacancies do y'all have?
We have no vacancies in our office center.
You have no vacancies?
No vacancies. So we have a staff of 10 folks in the Title IX office. We have a Title IX coordinator, 1 deputy Title IX coordinator for response and resolution, 1 deputy Title IX coordinator for training and prevention. We have a lead investigator, 1 case manager, 4 investigators, and an office coordinator. If you count the work that we do on ADA compliance, that would bring our total up to 12.
So who's your Title IX coordinator?
Josh Jones is currently in the seat. We have hired a gentleman who will come and start on January 6th. He's on campus today. He's beginning a week's worth of training and onboarding with Josh Jones. His name is Osvaldo Gomez. He comes to us from the university, from Houston Community College System.
As what?
As
What was
Title
he
IX
there?
coordinator.
He was Title IX at Houston?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So the other campuses in the system, no vacancies?
No. In terms of what we look like with our reporting, as we've been kind of talking about with some of the other systems, there is a difference between reports and formal complaints. As you know, because there's a mandatory reporter policy, that means that Every employee has an obligation to report something if they become aware or hear something. However, the opportunity to advance a matter, it rests in the hands of the survivor. And so the survivors, our office has outreach. And as part of that outreach, folks are advised of services that are available to them, including the filing of a formal complaint, which would result in an actual investigation. So across our system, we had 19 formal complaints. 14 are power-based violence related. There was one with an actual finding of fault that resulted in an actual suspension.
How many of those were at the main campus?
We had 13 formal complaints across on the main campus, Senator. That one that you see there, that was an actual suspension that came from the main campus.
What's the timeline for this?
So for,
Was it October?
yes, for the October 1, 2023 through September 30th, 2024. And on average, our cases are taking between 60 and 90 days to complete. What we provided was a range on the very low end and on the high end. What you see there on the high end, there are a variety of factors that play into when a case gets resolved. In order for a case to proceed to an actual hearing, we have to have participation of all individuals. So in the example of the matter that was 22 days, in that matter, we had a complainant that left LSU but still wanted to pursue the matter. That complainant actually basically cut off contact with our office for about 3 weeks or so. And so we were trying to get in touch with them. We also went through a process of having to respond to cross complaint in that matter. And so all those things just add time that it takes to resolve a matter. But that matter actually went to hearing on December 6th. And so we're actually expecting feedback from the hearing panel very shortly.
So when that happens, when something takes 222 days, do you all do like a quality review or like some process where you look back and from the initial point of contact with the student, look at what could we have done better? What could we have done that would have satisfied the concern that I believe the system has and also addresses the concern of the student? Do y'all look?
Yes, we do that. And in this particular case, Senator, we did. That instance was an anomaly in terms of the length of time. As I mentioned, we're looking at on average 60 to 90 days for our cases that actually go through the formal investigation process to make their way to hearing. That was a very unique set of circumstances where an individual left. They broke off communication with the office. They wanted to switch advisors. We had to help them find a new advisor. So all those things where you're working with an individual to satisfy their needs, but there's some feedback in terms of, you know, what they're expecting versus what we're able to provide.
So there may be a finding on that.
There could be possibly.
Yeah, so out
We
of
don't know
5,
that.
you may have 1 finding.
Good.
The other 4 reconciled already. I mean, they're already, because you're saying no findings under
Yes.
Title IX.
Yes.
And that's the only one that's still at the point of a hearing,
Correct.
right?
Is there any mechanism where we can look at university systems the size of LSU, let's say, in other states and see how many Title IX reports they have
Oh, I
versus?
think Coach Blackwell did that.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, they did
The-
it pretty
the question
thoroughly and
under
told us.
reporting is really an important conversation,
Yeah.
right? Is it underreporting because people don't have confidence in the process? Is it underreporting because they don't know, Raphael, to your point, where to go? Like, why is it that the numbers are low? The legislation asks us to front end the education and training, consent, healthy relationships, all these things. But given 250,000 students, the numbers are clearly low. So we have to get to that point of what is happening. right? Or what is not happening?
Frankly, I would love to know how many
The fact
great
that out of
kids
the
come from
nine, out
LSU
of the five
students
that
on
got
the
that
weekend.
far, there were no findings.
Second,
I would love to know the number of rape kits taken from LSU students on a given week compared to the complaints we've got right here. No,
You have the
know?
information?
I mean, I could get you it doesn't mean it all is on campus, but I.
No,
can
that's
get
what I'm
you-
saying.
Like the
It's a
people who
student.
report to us,
And it's probably a student on student.
the best numbers are also probably from the SANES, like the EBR coroner's office,
Right.
because they get called.
Right.
Even if maybe somebody doesn't want an advocate, but I don't know if I would imagine that they are kind of inquiring about if they're a student or not, just by the nature of the work, but I don't know if they keep formal stats, but.
so rape kits are not handled on campus.
No, could
no,
be
no.
collected on campus. I think Mindy was going to the student health center at one point. I don't know if she still is doing that, but I think if, like, the coroner's office in the past have responded to the student health center, but if the vast majority of them are taking, are happening after hours on weekends, obviously the student health center is not a place that students.
And we can, I mean, I can very easily, of course, this doesn't say how many are students, I can very easily, with the new tracking system that Senator Mizell put into place, we can tell you how many kids were taken at any time range. Now, it just went into effect, but so I can tell you how many kids were taken in EBR parish last month. Now, I can't tell you how many of those were students, but I can tell you how many were taken in the parish. And I'm sure a conversation with the Saints, they could maybe narrow that down and say, they may not be able to say of the whatever 30, 15 were students, they may not be able to say that, but they might be able to say approximately, a third of them were students or something to that nature, just from conversations with the parents.
As I would say, I think based on all the kids they're doing, I would doubt it would be a third, but I mean, I think to your point
Right.
that they could probably give some kind of ballpark, but I mean.
And I don't think they did 30 last month. I'm just throwing these numbers out. those are totally made up numbers.
Right, and I think sometimes students are coming and they may not want a kit done, but they're wanting emergency prophylactic medication to prevent sexually transmitted infection. So I mean, that's another thing. Possibly a women's hospital could, because that tends to be the hospital that students go to.
And again, for the sake of time, I do want to kind of move us along, but I don't want to negate any questions that we may have, and I'm gonna go back to you. I'm looking at the timeline of 222 days. Was it just that one case?
That was that one matter.
And then the 162 on the Power Base, I think was the first one. Yeah, Power Base was 162 days. Is that typical, or was that one case? as
No,
well?
that's not typical. What we did, Senator, in this instance was we gave you
Yeah,
a range, right? We tried to show you on the low end and we tried to show you a matter that had the highs, right?
So was it one case that went us
Yes.
to 162
Yes,
days?
sir.
Yeah, because I'm looking at how drastically more it is compared to the other universities. Because I think the most I may have seen was 90 with the system. And everybody had like 45 to 60 days. So I'm looking at trying to figure out, is this just that one particular isolated incident, or
That's one incident.
on the
It's a
Power Base
range.
and one on Title IX?
Yes.
Okay.
We've had some cases that go longer than 90 days. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes you interview witnesses and then you have snowball
Sure.
witnesses and then you can't get in touch with that witness. And
Okay.
so we have had the outliers as well over 90 days occasionally.
And
Especially during the summer.
Especially during summer breaks, yeah.
And there are multiple things, there are multiplicity of things that are occurring that you're trying to get done. So you're trying to bring people to the office to interview them, try to coordinate schedules. Sometimes they have advisors, sometimes they have lawyers. So there are a lot of things that have to line up for you to be able to collect all the information and even get it on the schedule to have a hearing. So.
And for us, our investigative reports on average have been 40 to 60 pages long. So for the investigator just to write the report and to put in perspective, investigators are often other duties are always in my system, other duties as assigned. So you might have a dean of students who is also an investigator in the case, trying to write a 60-page report. That can delay things.
Just let me, just so I can better understand. A power-based violent complaint, you got 14. Is that like, give me a breakdown on the level of a complaint. Was it a sexual assault? Was it stalking? Was it, how would you break it down? Like,
Well, what we were asked to do in this instance was just to give you the number of
Right.
items that were classified as power-based
Every
violence versus
complaint.
those versus
Okay.
the total that were classified as Title IX. And so that is how the numbers.
so
broke
that,
down.
okay, so when that happens, when you get a complaint that becomes a formal complaint, do you refer the student to some sort of counseling or?
So when we receive a report, Senator, and again, there's a difference between a report and a formal complaint.
Right, right.
Only a formal complaint results in an actual investigation.
Okay,
Okay, and so when we receive a report,
right.
within 24 to 48 hours, we have outreach.
How many reports have you received to come down to 14 formal complaints?
Within the time period that we're talking about, there are 318.
And out of the 318, only 14 became formal complaints.
Yes, power-based violence.
Wow.
19 total formal complaints.
Right. So, but when a student calls, I'm just thinking of the student at that moment in time, if they have the wherewithal to call the office based on seeing it online or whatever, and they reach out, are they referred to somebody like Star? Are they referred to like, what are we providing that student at that point of that initial call?
Sure. So when we receive a report,
Uh-huh.
our case managers have outreach confidentially through
Okay.
the Maxian system, which sends out a confidential communication to a student. The student is invited to have a conversation with our office. Preference would be for them to come into the office where our case manager could sit down with them one-on-one and speak to them. Sometimes students want to do that by video conference. Sometimes they want to do that by telephone. We work with them to do whatever works best for them, right? But when we send our initial communication to them, we provide a list of resources that they can rely on or that are available. So for instance, STAR is a resource in our initial communication that they are advised is available to them. And so once we make that contact with the student has a conversation with our case manager. We walk them through our process. We let them know what law enforcement opportunities might be available in terms of advancing their concern with law enforcement. And we also make them aware of what steps are involved if they want to proceed with a formal complaint. Regardless of whether or not a student wants to proceed with a formal complaint and investigation, we also provide supportive measures to them. So those supportive measures could be adjustments to class schedules. It could be adjustments to work schedules. For example, if they're working in a space where they may feel unsafe, we work with them to make sure that there are accommodations such that they are safe within that work environment.
Because the adjustments to class, I'm still back on that, because when we had the hearing, Senator Vera, it was the victim who had to make the adjustment to her class schedule. And the perpetrator went the way and kept the same schedule and stayed in the same class. She had to make the adjustment, which I thought was a reverse in the way that would have been handled. So that's something we could talk about. That I just wonder if when you looked at, and maybe this is something we need to ask for you all to provide, when you look at 318 reports, but only 14 become formal complaints, is there one criteria that is blocking that, a number of those becoming formal complaints? Is there some obstacle in the process for a student not to proceed that maybe we're missing?
I have a quick question. So that's 4.4% that are moved from a report to a formal complaint. Maybe with your experience in the police force, what is the percentage of those individuals who may report a sexual assault or a power-based violence, and the numbers that are actually, like, how many are they choose to pull back on pressing charges? Or is it still around 4%?
Well, that's very interesting, and there's a lot that goes on there, and Monica can go into this. But typically, we don't see people reporting. It's still a cultural problem where children, young adults, they're afraid to report. Usually, we're getting reports because they report later on to a friend, and so then a mandatory reporter hears it, whether it's school or from safe, where they tell someone else and a parent hears it, or it's years later, and then they feel emboldened to go ahead and report because they're in a safe place. But as far as our children in universities, do I believe that all of them, because they've been sexually assaulted or feel threatened, are gonna come to report? Absolutely not. And I think that it's gonna be a cultural issue to get out there and let them know that they have rights and that this is their right to feel safe and that they're right and that shame shouldn't take a part in it. And I think that shame and feeling guilty for going out or, you know, any of those things is working against our young people. So as far as the 4%, I don't think that we can look at those numbers and say, because the cases that we're seeing, we get all in a manner of different.
I'm just having a hard time wrapping my brain around the
Until-
4.4%.
Well, until the systems that we have in place quit re-traumatizing survivors, you're still gonna have it, right? I'm gonna tell you today, right? I don't know if somebody came to me personally that I knew that went through an experience and said, should I report to law enforcement? I don't know what I would say to that individual because it is such a re-traumatizing situation. And it's the same in every system that we have. And that's why it's so hard. We always talk about societal change, systemic changes to change things to where a survivor feels empowered and safe. That's the word, safe to report.
And I think too, the thing that y'all have to remember is, and I know that we use this example a lot, because I mean, my background is in sexual assault prevention and sexual assault work, so is Raphael and Morgan. But these numbers are so low. It's not just low because if you just talk about sexual assault, it's not just low. We're talking about dating violence. We're talking about stalking. Do you know how many college students are stalked? Like, and I think that we're like, and not just y'all, I'm not just picking on you guys. I think society, we're not telling our young people enough that if somebody is asking you out every single class and you're saying no, and every single class they are asking you out, that is stalking, that is harassment, and that meets the definition in some of this stuff. It really does. And some of the power-based violence legislation that we have, it meets the definition of it. And so we are talking, and I realize we're talking about the bigger picture and the more heinous crimes, but that guy that's asking that girl out every single time, hoping to wear her down, he's eventually gonna sexually assault someone. Right? And so we're talking about it up at 90,000 feet and the bigger crimes, but we need to also be looking at the domestic violence, the stalking, some of this initial behavior that is coming into play
And so
as
I'm
well.
hoping at the next meeting that we can make these some of the topic of discussions.
Yes.
That I would hope that we have within the next 30 days, next 45 days.
Okay.
Because we need to be looking at if we need to change something in the policies to address that before session starts. I do have one other question for you, Mr. Manuel, as it relates to how many authorized positions do y'all have on campus for Title IX?
10.
So y'all don't have 21?
No, Senator, we have I work for the division, I represent the Division of Engagement, Civil Rights and Title IX. The entire division has 27 roles, including mine.
For the
Within
entire division has 21,
the division has 27,
27.
head count of
Okay.
27.
Mhm. So they got
The
27.
Title IX office, which is the office that oversees the matters that we're talking about right now, there are 10 employees in that office.
And it's only 10 authorized positions
10 for Title
for
IX.
Title IX. No,
Yes.
I got 10
Yes.
10 for Title IX.
Mhm.
Okay. That's the question. We'll make sure I got my information correct. Okay, and, Madam, Commissioner Superintendent. So I'm looking at everybody's budget really quickly. How do you guys determine like who gets what amount? I see like LSU, like they got 2.1 million. Southern System, like you got a little bit more than 8. Let me go back. I was kind of adding them up.
So we allocate to the systems, I believe, $1 million each.
Oh, so they all
And
got
then
a
the
million?
systems allocate to their campuses. And then
Okay.
Todd mentioned they have added from within their own budget additional money.
Okay, so you guys, cause it doesn't look like $1 million for Southern. I did rough math, but. it
So
was
these were the
$1
numbers that my finance provided me. If it's not, I can go back to them and see what the
million.
discrepancy is.
Yeah, okay. Everybody received $1 million. Yes. And then some added more to that.
Right.
Right.
We just used whatever was allocated to us by the legislature.
Mhm.
And so we allocated it to our campuses.
Y'all added more.
Enrollment.
That's all right.
They, LSU added more, we did not.
Y'all didn't add more to yours, cause this look more than $1 million.
Well, you have the campus budgets that pay for these employees. This is $1
Yes.
million on top of
Exactly.
that.
Okay.
So
That's
the
correct.
numbers you see in the chart, in the PowerPoint, is the legislative allocation to Title IX, not the operating budget of the institution for Title IX.
Correct. That is correct.
Right.
So the budget we have here is the money that was allocated through us.
Correct. Yes.
Except
Except for LSU.
LSU added their
We,
additional.
we gave you everything.
Y'all supposed more than $1 million.
So we'll get for you, Senator, the breakdown for both.
It's not much, it's a little bit more. It's like,
Yeah, y'all good.
yeah,
Okay.
it's like another 50,000 or something.
Oh, well, that may be our office. Let me check on that.
Okay, I was just trying to see, so, but everybody did receive, the same amount.
Right.
Okay, that's all I was trying to see.
Our district got 1.153 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
So we'll
a nice
see
change
if
here
you
and there.
Okay, all right. That's all I have,
No,
Madam.
thank you.
Should I turn it back over to you?
So what
Yeah,
about-
oh, any public comments?
We just to make an announcement real quick. if possible. No, I just real quick, I just want to say, at La Fosse, we did lose Miss Monica Taylor as a board member, but we added Dr. Amber Blair as a board member of La Fosse. Also, I wanted to
An
mention.
upgrade, really.
Not nearly as entertaining.
I just wanted to bring up that with me here is Miss Jasmine Adams. Jasmine is our campus sexual assault coordinator. She started with this in July. She's part of our team that works directly with Title IX directors and students. She's worked with some of you already. I know one of the things that we're doing is we're trying to build at all the campuses, we're trying to build, I hate to use the word an army, but like a bunch of different ambassadors at campuses to be able to help to get word out to students, to table. We try to, as an organization, to work with all the systems to do like coffee with consent and those type things. So please, those are resources that we have. I also want to make sure that one of the directions we're going towards is to make sure that our sexual assault centers throughout the state of Louisiana do have MOUs with the systems to make sure that when a student needs some service, like we were talking about earlier at LSU, they can reach out to STAR, that they can reach out to Pine Hills if they're in Louisiana Tech, right? And then one other thing, I've brought this up a few times, La Fosse does now have a text chat crisis line. It's not 24-hour. We don't have the budget for that. That's something I would love to discuss as budgets. But we do have a lot of collateral that we can provide to the universities. mirror magnets and mirror clingers, whatever, that have the text chat line. It has a QR code. You know, we see a big shift towards text and chatting versus telephone calls. So that's we really want you guys to get that information because we want it to be utilized. And then, of course, red zone awareness, we're trying to work with all y'all. We have some collateral. So all I'm saying is, as an organization, we're here to help in any way we possibly can. And I'm so excited to have Jasmine with us, and she's phenomenal. So please call on us for any way that we can help.
Thank you for that. Something too. So in Senator Mizell's bill, the Sexual Assault Survivor Bill of Rights bill that she just passed, there was this little thing added at the end that said that if there is any violation under any law, not just the ones that were outlined in the Sexual Assault Survivor Bill of Rights, but any violation a survivor may have anywhere in law, they can request for oversight before the Senate Select Committee on Women and Children. It does not mean that y'all can actually do anything, but it's once again that sunshine type thing. So what I think we need to start doing is encouraging survivors to request oversight hearings to the Senate Select Committee for Women and Children, should they find that their rights are being violated under any provision of the power-based violence law. And that's what I think, I think you will probably be hearing from people.
Does each university have a student? I know LSU has the Tigers. What's the name?
Tigers Against Sexual Assault.
Does each university have a group of advocates at the student level? Does anybody know?
Some of our institutions do, but not all of them. I know for sure, UL Lafayette has the It's On Us group.
So it's done usually through student government, would get the word out on something like that, if we
I
want to
think there's
reach out
something
to.
at ULM too,
Yeah,
because they usually do
I mean, your centers are gonna be what I would say, like, if it's the outside groups, right? Because like, they're the ones who should, and we can maybe do a webinar or something through LAFASA to make sure all of our centers are aware of the new Sexual Assault Survivor Bill of Rights. I think we might actually have something planned. I don't know. I need to get something to you. But to where they know requesting oversight and how to do that also, because not all survivors want to be public, but we can do their initials. We can have, some sort of basis to where obviously the person who's presenting for them could be, swearing to tell the truth, that kind of thing. But I think it is one opportunity for you all to get some of this information in front of you. And I know it won't just be for campus stuff, but it is that little provision that was added at the end.
Don't get mad at me, one more thing real quick.
Yeah.
State law states that any sexual assault survivor advocate to have privilege has to be trained under a 40-hour training program through an accredited sexual assault center,
Yes.
right?
That is
Well,
relevant.
LaFASA has just developed an Easy Generator and e-learning platform where we're doing the 40-hour training online. So it's consistent for all the centers to have their advocates go through.
Yeah.
We are trying to formulate a way to where we can share that with maybe some campuses or things like that if they want to have some of their confidential advisors be trained.
They wouldn't be able to get privilege though, just.
No, they're not gonna get privilege, but knowledge is power. Remember I said this, to where they understand all those things. The problem is money, right? We're trying to figure out how we can afford to expand that system to where we could have other people utilize it and not just the sexual assault centers. It's just, and it's funny for us, it's like an additional $8,000 a year. So it's a hurdle we have. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot of money to y'all, but it's
No,
huge for us because we
no
get the
money
money.
you're getting from the state.
Yeah,
but
there's
if
no
the
state
could
money.
grow The 20,000, you're exaggerating.
I'm exaggerating
It's
low.
lower.
Yeah.
That is not what I heard in this.
No, it isn't. No, I know it isn't.
That was a very low.
But my point is saying that is a reminder that I say all the time is that Louisiana has absolutely zero money in their budget for sexual assault survivors.
Which is different than.
It's besides crime victim reparations. That's it. Like
Centers.
what's that?
None for centers.
None percenters, yeah. None whatsoever. So every penny that sexual assault centers get comes through the federal government.
Do you know what it just took to get rape kit tracking?
Oh, I know.
I mean, we could talk about what Louisiana does with sexual assault victims.
No, I agree.
And we have to keep raising the awareness, right? And so it's, that sounds like a small investment in
connecting,
the conversation. that
Right,
we
and
need.
connecting with the talent that's up at the table to
Yes.
make sure. With
Yes.
Zoom and all these things, how we can do that. So I appreciate you sharing that and collaborating.
I apologize for my language in that. It was to the Centers for Survivors.
To the Centers for
I think we're missing the boat if, like Dr. Kelly said, like, well, as that strong us, if we don't identify and empower the students to lead their own, because that's changing the culture. So if we don't, like, look at that as a priority to identify those strong student leaders and start those groups, that way, if there hesitation to come to an adult, the police department, a counselor, but if they want to speak to each other and talk about it, and then they can, I think that's the first step in changing it. Have the student empowered.
Because this is, because we're not hearing the voices from the students. Bless your heart for coming, but the students' voices, that 316 or 18, I really want to know what happened there.
Right.
Any additional public comments?
Jasmine Adams from Boston.
Hi, yeah, so pretty much what you guys kind of touched on and what I believe that you're gonna touch on next meeting is pretty much helping campuses connect the paper to the process. And I think that's what I've talked about with some of our systems that are here now is that, of course, we have all of these regulations, but they're not translating to the students and their needs and like with assessing them and then assisting them. So what I'm trying to do with La FAFSA, in which I'm honored to be here, is to help push through and come through with that programming, coming through with that knowledge, that verbiage, that's more student-centered and student-focused. So I think that's like very huge when it comes to barriers and how we are actually assisting the students when it comes to reporting. And then speaking on reporting, as I'm meeting with Title IX coordinators, I think some of the things that we should hone in on is, are our reporting consistent, right? Or are some schools just reporting the reports, or are some schools just reporting the formal complaints? Because there's a difference. And so I think like once we get on the same page with that, then we'll get more of a better picture of what our students need, what they have right now, and how we can move forward.
And I think what you're saying exactly right. Between the reporting and the formal complaint, are the processes all the same?
Right.
Yeah.
Is the way, yeah, right.
And the
So-
definitions and.
So I'm glad I hired.
Smart.
And so these are some of the things that we are gonna have listed for the next meeting. And at this time, I don't think we have any additional public comments, so I wanna thank everybody for being here. I wanna thank you for your additional patience, for the additional hour that we've gone over with this meeting. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay. All right, second. All in favor? I know we don't have any opposition. Y'all have a wonderful holiday break and then you're
I know you can run, you wanna see this?
He said, you have enough.
Yeah, this looks like.
Jefferson down.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't know you were this. But this is
sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you for coming. I hope you'll come back. We normally.
No, I'm never coming back because, no, it's me, so.